Start. Record. Okay. We're back. Right? Yeah. There we go. Volume's all fixed. Okay. Sometimes, sometimes software just doesn't want to work properly. Okay. Let's. What was I looking for? Oh, yeah, that's right. Let me put this stuff back. Ay. Do that. And then there. And then this. And then this. Oh, let's just. Well, what we'll do. We'll just like delete that one. Oh, is that still pinned? Oh, nice. Okay, cool. Do that. Cool. Well, right, how about this? Uh-huh. Let's refresh. There it is. That. No. Do that. And then, I don't know. We'll just, fuck it. We'll do this. There we go. Now that's fixed. Okay, cool. Until that. And then we got to the one for YouTube. There's like a whole process every time, like, before you hit the live button, there's always that, like, you got to do like 10 different things before you're really ready to actually start. You guys are getting like a, you get to watch the what's it called? We put out fires and everything right before. I can close this. We're done with that. Okay, now we're back onto the normal screen. Okay, volume's not all fucked. All right, cool. So.
Blippity blop blop boop.
Oh, God, so many. Okay, technical issues abound. Well, welcome to a cobbled together leftist stream. My name is Josh. On here we talk news, politics, politics, and current events. If you were here, like, we all know. Anyway, okay, let's regroup a little bit. Only had to spend an extra couple of minutes. Anyway, quickly want to go over a story from the AP over the gun violence, covering some of the gun violence over the weekend. Apparently an Alzheimer's drug has been reached full FDA approval, which is really cool. I just want to read it just because I think that's very good. Celebrate some good news. And then I want to take a look at, if we have time, the U.S. Basically having their ankles clipped a little bit at trying to combat disinformation on social media. So we'll kind of take a look at that. A judge ruled in favor of, I should say, against I believe it was the Biden administration, looking into misinformation on the internet. Which, yeah, that's kind of the main way that I think a lot of disinformation and misinformation is getting disseminated. Either way, let's get into the stories because we're already like running late. We're already doing, like I said, I already had a mic problem as it was. So let's get into it, shall we? All right. Wave of mass shootings. Shit. There we go. The wave of mass shootings over the 4th of July highlights the challenges police face. Now keep in mind, obviously responding to mass shootings, and I think I've covered this before, is not easy. And also not, it's not, you're working, if you think information to the public is, is difficult to work with, trust me, police during these kinds of mass shooting events, there's usually even less information that they have trying to go in and protect people. It's why I advocate often, why I say, like, there's a reason why police do not want everybody walking around brandishing firearms, because it's just, in scenarios like this, it makes it so much harder to identify threats and non-threats. But anyway, 30 shot, two fatally at a block party in Baltimore, at least 3 killed and 10 wounded at an annual 4th July 4th bash in Louisiana. A 7-year-old shot dead in Tampa after two groups gathered along a causeway for Independence Day. Started a fight. 9 others injured when bullets are sprayed from a car in the nation's capital. A rash of shootings at the U.S. as the U.S. celebrated the 4th of July, is spiking fears in communities across the country and highlighting the challenges police face in preventing such violence as temperatures warm and festivities move outside. Policing such events is a delicate balance for law enforcement, who must weigh the right of revelers to gather with the threat of violence that looms in public and private spaces in a nation awash with guns. Quote, in many ways, their hands are tied because these types of events are often on private property and people may not do anything to violate the law until someone brandishes a firearm and starts shooting, said Tom Nolan, who was a Boston police officer for nearly 3 decades. So can the police do anything to prevent that? I just think it's an extraordinary challenge for them to be all places at all times and anticipate things that none of us are expecting. So, okay, let's talk about this really quickly. When we talk about, so recognizing that, like, police work is not always the easiest, like, kind of work, in terms of, like, balancing, private rights and kind of, like, public safety and everything. While that is a balancing act, this is why I think there's, and I've yet to really see it, why there's strong support for common sense gun regulations. The police, quite frankly, with the relationship that we have with firearms and in many states, not all, but a lot of states, with an inability to really curb a lot of gun ownership, illegal and illegal, unfortunately, police are kind of left to figure it out for a lot of cases. And citizens, unfortunately, only figure it out when there's violence occurring, right? So this is kind of why the big push over the last, I don't know, I'd say maybe like 10 years or so has really been for a reformation of a lot of our gun laws and kind of a much more, I think, serious passing of these laws. Many gun rights activists will point to the fact that there are already a lot of regulations in place. Unfortunately, what we tend to notice is the regulatory bodies and the legal gray area that some of them fit into mean that they're not always going to be implemented, I think, in a consistent manner throughout the country. You obviously have states where they have very open gun laws. They have a lot of I think a lot of lax feelings about their citizens' access to firearms. And because of that, you see a real, what's the word I'm looking for? A real dereliction of duty to a degree, I guess one could say, in terms of like actually, investigating some of this stuff. Because if you live in a state where gun rights are very much like highly politicized and privileged in, I don't know, maybe like we'll say a state like Alabama, I'll just pick a southern state, one where, a belief in broad gun rights is, I think a cornerstone of that society and of, kind of the localities there. You tend not to really investigate a lot of that stuff. Even when you're supposed to, you don't know what state and local laws you're running contradictory to. So because there's not a national standard, I think that's why there's always been a push for national regulation and national laws, so that there isn't this like, oh, but this state has this law and da-da-da. It's like, no, it all falls under the same federal umbrella. That's kind of I think the impetus, or at least the thinking going into why national gun laws have become such a talking point. Violence often surges in the summer months when teens are out of school and there are more social events that can quickly turn deadly when tempers flare. Curfews for young people and increased police presence on the streets are among the strategies cities have historically used to try and combat summer violence. Police can prepare for parades and other large annual events by monitoring social media chatter ahead of time, requiring a law enforcement presence for permitted events and changing up their coverage plans depending on how many people are expected when. Ideally, police work. Wait. Depending on how many people are expected when. I feel like what? Okay. Ideally, police work with communities who want the protection, but it's impossible for law enforcement to monitor every block party or holiday gathering. Vacations can also lead to police departments being thinly staffed over holiday weekends and summer months, which means calls for loud music and other disturbances can get backed up while police deal with more pressing matters, Nolan said. During the time when their services are most in demand, they are stretched far more thinly than they would like to publicly admit, said Nolan, who was a shift commander in the patrol division. Keep in mind, wait, where's this person from again? Boston. Okay, cool. Keep in mind also Massachusetts passed some very, I think, we see a lot of positive outcomes from the gun regulations that they've passed. I do appreciate a lot of what they've done. So I'm curious, if it's just block parties and a lot of noise ordinances, that's a lot more, I think, healthy, or at the very least, I'd like to see a lot more of people complaining about noise ordinances than, shots fired. Let's see. The gun violence that flared this week in Washington, D.C., Louisiana, Florida, Philadelphia, Texas, Baltimore, and Boston left more than a dozen dead and more than 60 wounded, including children as young as 2 years old. A wave of killings came as the Chicago suburb of Highland Park was marking the anniversary of last year's mass shooting at the 4th of July parade. That left 7 people dead. Security was tight at events aimed at honoring those killed, and the day was capped by a drone show instead of fireworks to avoid the noise that could sound like gunfire. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre condemned the gun violence Wednesday, urging Congress to pass a ban on so-called assault weapons and placing blame on the proliferation of guns in the U.S. This is another one of those things where it's like, okay, you're half in the bag on the first one, and the second one, that's going to be a bigger project. We need to really, really work on kind of the way that guns are, I think, characterized and looked at in this country. Lives are at stake here, folks. Lives are at stake in communities and lives of our kids. In Baltimore, police knew about the block party at the Brooklyn Homes last year and sent squads to the area to monitor for any potential violence. Police said there wasn't any. This year, police officials didn't discover Sunday's event was happening until the day of. It wasn't advertised on social media, and no one in the community told officers, so law enforcement officials weren't properly prepared when violence broke out. Interim Baltimore Police Commissioner Richard Worley told reporters he said police are looking at whether they could have done anything better to make sure something like that doesn't happen again. These are events that are about celebration, about coming together, and that are intergenerational and should be sacred to our communities. When a few decide to go and literally create a mass shooting, it's completely unacceptable. Baltimore City Council Nick Mosby urging the members of the public to work with police to find those responsible. Hello. The 28 injured in the Baltimore ranged in age from 13 to 32. Christ. With more than half of them younger than 18. It's even worse. Officials said folding tables and plastic cups are scattered on the street, apparently left behind when people ran from the gunshots. Yeah, I can imagine. The police can do everything right, but still won't be able to find every gunman who wants to do harm. The annual celebration in Shreveport, Louisiana, where a gunman opened fire late Tuesday, had gone on for a decade with no trouble. Shreveport. I don't think it's Eve. I feel like it's Shreveport. Shreveport police said that officers who arrived on the scene had a hard time reaching victims because of the volume of parked cars. Can imagine. Say fuck them. Place on Earth and worse than Nazi Germany. Well, that's a cringe take. 5 ever seen one. Now we are the victim of mass shooting in our community simply because individuals decided to come in and disrupt a good time that individuals were having. Tabitha Taylor, a Shreveport, not going back to Shreve, city council member said a family event that has gone on for years in our community has been disrupted by gunfire because somebody decided to pull their guns and do this. Why? Yeah, why? Well, unfortunately, because people get into arguments, and if you have pretty open access to firearms, they're probably going to reach for a gun to settle their argument. The Tuesday shooting along the causeway, what the fuck is a causeway? That crossed Tampa Bay, which killed a 7-year-old, stemmed from an argument over jet skis that one group said were coming too close to children playing in the water. The night before, 3 people were killed and 8 others were injured when several men fired indiscriminately into a crowd of hundreds that had gathered in a Texas neighborhood after a festival in the area. 5 people were shot early Wednesday in Boston, where debris from fireworks and empty boxes were seen scattered in the street as law enforcement worked to collect evidence. Christ. In New York City, the annual Jouvert and West Indian Day parade celebrations had been marred by violence for years. Police had to rethink how they approached the event and how they work with the Brooklyn community ahead of time. We know the ritual. Pick up the paper the day after and you look at the number of homicides, how many shootings took place, what happened at the parade. Mayor Eric Adams said last year as he took a victory lap following the peaceful Labor Day weekend, it didn't happen this weekend. It did not happen. Why? Because 4 days out, we brought together our commissioners and we said, we are going to be a team. Ay, 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 ay. You know what else really not a big fan of is a lot of this like patting yourself on the back because there wasn't like a mass shooting at your your local event or whatever. Like that's maybe not really it's maybe not really the thing to take a pat on the back for. What is this story from Texas? No arrests have been made. People were killed and 8 and others were injured, and several men fired indiscriminately into a crowd of hundreds that gathered in Texas neighborhood following the festival of the area. What was the festival? Police said Tuesday the shooting on Horn Street, where a large crowd had gathered, was separate from the unrelated at Como Fest. A chaotic scene followed the shooting as people tried to flee on foot and in vehicles as shots rang out, according to authorities. Police said arriving to the office found multiple victims in a parking lot, including one who was pronounced dead at the scene. Others were taken to hospital. Paul Willis, Kadisha Weatherly told the Daily Mail News. Weatherly told the newspaper that after hearing what sounded like 100 gunshots, wow, that's a lot, late Monday, she began running down the streets to find her son and nephews. She found her nephews, but not her son. She said she hadn't realized that she'd run past his body. Oh. Wow. Now that's... Wow. Cynthia Santos, 22, was also killed during the Tarrant County Medical Examiner's, according to the Tarrant County... What the fuck did I say? Medical Examiner's office said she died at the hospital early Tuesday. Jesus. Is there like a... No. I'm just kind of curious whether they was among those attending the parade. What was the parade? Okay. Interesting. Okay. Let's anyway. So when it comes down to it, I guess like the reason why I try to keep an eye on stories like this is not so much to advocate, although I do advocate for it, but not so much to advocate directly for, gun reforms or specific laws, because I don't, there's my personal cocktail of gun reforms that I would make that, are then going to, that I would like love to see in like a fantasy world. But like, if we're talking the thing that really, like I want to hammer home is every single year in every single country around the world, there are these kinds of celebrations, these kinds of gatherings for, Independence Days, for signings of their country's constitutions, for historical like days, in their history, all kinds of stuff like this. And we just don't see the level of gun violence in, compared to what we see here in the United States. To put it plainly, this is a uniquely American problem. And for whatever reason, we seem to have a very blasé attitude to our relationships with firearms. Absolutely. It's something that really is a unique American element. The way that we revere firearms, the way that we approach firearms, the way that we, I think a lot of people rely on firearms to give them a sense of control that they just don't have, um, or that they're insecure about the ability, if they have that control over this or that thing. It's just oftentimes firearms in America are used as a way of settling disputes where I just don't think that there is that kind of response elsewhere in the world, and certainly not to the degree that we have it. And this is just the cost of that. To me, this is all about cost. This is the cost of coming into or I guess developing a nation based on a lot of individuality, based on a lot of I think based on just a lot of one's identity wrapped up in their pride. I think that's a big part of it. It's a big part of like kind of I think our kind of national certainly our national history, with the adoption and justification of slavery in this country, but also the excuse me, but also the the treatment of Native Americans, not to reference too much by activate chat, please. But yeah, it's just the relationship we have to firearms means that we're just going to have I think wildly different responses to these kinds of gatherings. They seem to turn out a lot more violent here than they do elsewhere. Let's see, into ghettos. All right, well, let me read. I've seen this out the corner of my eye. Let me continue to read here. Fuck America, based. Okay, cool. I have my issues with the U.S. Worse than Nazi Germany, I think, is where I'm a bit. It is where you kind of lose me. Mainly because what happened in Nazi Germany is a pretty unique and I think pretty what's the word I'm looking for? A pretty stark example of senseless human cruelty, and I think a society that embraced, I think, a lot of fear, a lot of anxious fervor, and kind of reached for, I think, the easiest and most what's the word I'm looking for? The most comfortable I think excuse and explanation for where they were at the time, and for as a justification for what they did. Nazi Germany is up there. I actually think I had this conversation with my girlfriend the other day, comparing like what Nazi Germany did to during the Holocaust to what some of the stuff that the Japanese Empire was up to during that time. Because oh boy, what is it? Troop 731? I could be wrong about the number, but the human experimentation going on in Japan. Oh my goodness. Let's see. 100 million natives. Well, I mean, depending on how you look at it, slavery absolutely did not end in this country. Now you just have to be, what's the word I'm looking for? What's the word I'm looking for? Now you just have to be, you just have to break the law, and then you can be a slave. Twice as long for the same crime. Yeah, what's new? Guns, and liquor stores in their community. Well, I don't really. Okay, I don't know if liquor stores really in there. Nazi Germany took a lot of notes. Hey, Tommy Temper, how are you? Nazi Germany took a lot of notes from us. You basically set up the blueprint on oppression for them. Yeah, I'm aware of that. The U.S. has absolutely done like terrible things. I just don't really know if like I don't really know if we have the same what's it called? If we have the same impetus that the Nazis had. There isn't the same motivating elements. When we look at especially the US's really sussy history, a lot of it comes down to capitalism and an interest in preserving a lot of the systemic racism and a lot of the structures that empower people with money. At the end of the day, a lot of this comes down to we had slaves and we justified slavery in this country for a long time because at the end of the day, it was monetarily beneficial to the people who owned those plantations. And also, I'm sure there was some kind of monetary argument made back in the day that, hey, with slave labor, prices can stay low. And, if you take that away, if you take my property or whatever the fuck away, then I'll have to charge more for services or for whatever the fuck bullshit excuses they come up with. But yeah. Anyway. 10 times. Also, the Nazi, like, just the extermination of the Jews was, again, that was like the point. Like, I do think there's a pretty stark difference between like us kicking Native Americans out because we want their land, because we want to build the empire on that land, and Nazi Germany, who literally just wanted Jewish people dead. They just wanted to exterminate a race of people. For the US at that time, it wasn't really about some kind of hatred towards indigenous folks. Although, there's a lot of justifications that went into that later on during the time where we venerated cowboys and during the Western Age. But still, let's be intellectually honest. Own it. What are you? You are very okay. Global control. We oppose other countries to stay number one. That's what every country seeks to do. I don't. We still have slaves. More people in prisons and on parole today than slaves. Okay. Well, yeah, you would kind of expect that. There are probably a lot more black people now than there were back then. Certainly. There's going to be a lot of like everything in terms of black people than slaves. Matter at all is how many died. It is certainly important. Activate chat. What is the you seem very dedicated to this. You're very triggered. You're being very triggered right now. Healthcare is by cruel and inhumane people, especially black. Yeah, also keep in mind a lot of like I actually didn't read this one. So we didn't do this. Yeah. Just hate this wicked world. Yeah, well, that's why you fight to change it. Trust me, everything you said, I don't necessarily agree with like everything you've said in terms of the way you're characterizing it. But the only thing you can do is fight to change stuff. That's all you can do. You either embrace the, I think, a passive nihilism that the world is not going to get better. And in that case, you're just going to kind of kick and scream and things aren't going to get better. What needs to happen is I suppose a active participation in the process. You don't change a system by leaving it the way it is. You do have to, and it's hard. And quite frankly, it's not always, you don't always get what you want. Dems put Planned Parenthood in black and brown communities. And business wants to be a good person. Oh my goodness. Okay. Do you want to hear some like good news? You want to hear? Do we want to hear some good news? Something that's at the very least on the more positive end of things? All right, cool. So, have you ever heard of Alzheimer's? It's like really sucks. It's really cringe. Nobody likes it. I would say its approval rating is somewhere in the negatives. Well, luckily for us, apparently something called Leqembi. I'm assuming that's how you pronounce it. Has gained full FDA approval, which means Medicare can pay for it. Which, say what you want about and I have my misgivings with the big pharma and the pharmaceutical wing of things, but if less people are going to be suffering from Alzheimer's, I will take it. U.S. officials have granted full approval to a closely watched Alzheimer's drug on Thursday, clearing the way for Medicare and other insurance plans to begin covering the treatment for people with brain-robbing disease. The Food and Drug Administration endorsed the IV drug, or is it for drug? No, it's IV. I'm not stupid. Leqembi, or it's Leqembi, for patients with mild dementia and other symptoms caused by early Alzheimer's disease. It's the first medicine that's been convincingly shown to modestly slow the cognitive decline caused by Alzheimer's. Japanese drug maker Eisai, I don't know, received conditional approval from the FDA in January based on early results suggesting Leqembi worked by clearing a sticky brain plaque linked to the disease. Dude, I don't know that much about Alzheimer's besides that it sucks, but that's good. The FDA confirmed those results by reviewing data from a larger 1,800 patient study in which the drug slowed memory and thinking declined by about 5 months in those who got the treatment compared to those who got a dummy drug. Sucks for those people. This confirmatory study, Christ above, verified that it is safe and effective treatment for patients with Alzheimer's disease. FDA's neurology drug director, Teresa Buracchio, God, man, so many foreign names. Baracchio? Yeah, it's probably Baracchio. In a statement, the drug's prescribing information will carry the most serious type of warning, indicating that Leqembi can cause brain swelling and bleeding side effects that can be dangerous in rare cases. The label notes that those problems are seen with other plaque-targeting Alzheimer's drugs. Makes sense. The process of converting a drug to full FDA approval usually attracts little attention, but Alzheimer's patients and advocates have been lobbying the federal government for months after Medicare officials announced last year they wouldn't pay for routine use of drugs like Leqembi until they receive FDA full approval. There were concerns that the cost of new plaque-targeting Alzheimer's drugs could overwhelm the program's finances, which provide care for 60 million seniors. Leqembi is priced as about $26,000 for a year's supply of IVs every 2 weeks. So, I want to know who owns this. What was it? SI? Is that what it was? Conditional approval. Increasing scrutiny. What's this? Approval for them. The agency's use of the shortcut has come under scrutiny. Okay, fine. Give me the fucking name again. What is it? Oh, I could. Fuck it. We'll just do this. Let's take a look. Fuck. Leqembi. Whoop. MB. Research? I mean, if indeed, yeah, I know that part. Let's see. Fierce Pharma. Grain Ground. Debuts. Files marketing authorization. So this is, okay, so there are two things we have to remember. One, this is not an American company, so most likely money did not go into this. Although, for me to say that definitively, even, right. Stop it. New research by them. I'm skeptical of that. Any research that's like gonna be on your own drug isn't my favorite. Drug to slow disease progress, clinical trials. Yeah, okay. So, okay, because originally I was gonna say this is quite expensive. Because what is it? What is it? It's 20 for a year's supply, dude. That's like almost, okay, 26,500 is almost as much as I make in the entirety of a year. Jesus, that's so much. Now, granted, the American taxpayer, it doesn't seem like funded any of this, so you know, sucks to suck. But keep in mind, like, drugs like this, like, you know, when we pay these kinds of prices for like foreign made drugs, to a degree, there's like okay, like that's, you know, that's the price. What I want to know more than anything, I guess, wait, what's the price in Japan? Actually, here, that's Leqembi price in Japan. That's what I want to know. New Alzheimer's Leqembi is price of this is less than half as much as the original price of da 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 da. No, but I want to know, god damn it, I want to know, shares jump, drug will cost, pricing, below the projected amount, no, I'm not, no, oh, man, I like, to FDA approval, yeah, I want to know how much they're charging, if, because if I'm to understand correctly, Japan has a more European style system, which means that they should be able to be getting better prices. So I really want to know. I'll keep an eye out for this because I want to know how much they're paying for it in Japan. Mass majority of Americans with Alzheimer's get their health coverage through Medicare, the private insurer, and private insurers have followed its lead by withholding coverage for Leqembi and a similar drug, Aduhelm? Why do they name these like this? Until they receive FDA's full endorsement, an FDA decision on full approval for Aduhelm is still years away. Let's see. What is this? I should speak. Okay, whatever. Since, okay, I am Latino, yes. How do you feel about the people on the border? Cages, displaced families, sterilized women. Is their suffering worth this? Worth what? I'm not sure what you mean worth. Like worth. What's the trade-off here? I mean, I do want a much more fluid immigration system. All those atrocities earlier is worth this new drug. When did I say that? Whoa. You're going to have to quote me on that, friend. I don't believe I ever said all of any of the things you talked about were worth, you know, this. I don't think I even made a value assessment. Medicare Administrator Chiquita Brooks LaShore said in a statement Thursday the program will begin paying for the drug now that it has full FDA approval, but the government is also setting extra requirements, including enrollment in a federal registry, to track the drug's real-world safety and effectiveness. That makes sense. Medicare, quote, will cover this medication broadly while continuing to gather data that will help us understand how the drug works. Some Medicare patients could be responsible for paying the standard 20% of the cost of Leqembi. Jesus. Wait, how much is that? Because what is that? What does it say? It was $26,500. It's $5,300. What is it? Damn it. No, wait. Okay, assuming I know how to do math even close to accurate here, that's, what was that, 442? Oh my god. Is that what that number was, right? Yeah, because 26,500, 20%. Nope. I said 12, damn you. Yeah, 442. Oh man. 440. Jesus. Basically $450 a month to keep your memory. Ay. Cost of Leqembi, though the amount will vary depending on their plans and the coverage details. Christ. Hospitals and medical clinics have cautioned that it may take time to get people started on the drug. And like, keep in mind, like, you know, as with all things in the US, there is the dark side of it, which is there will be people who just can't afford, even on Medicare, to get this drug. So again, we're fucking paywalling people's healthcare. Gotta love that. Doctors need to confirm that patients have the brain have the brain plaque by Leqembi before prescribing it. Nurses need to be trained to administer the drug, and patients must be monitored with repeated brain scans to check for swelling and bleeding. The imaging and administration services carry extra costs for hospital beyond the drug itself. SA has told investors that about 100,000 Americans could be diagnosed and eligible to receive Leqembi by 2026. The drug is co-marketed with Cambridge, Massachusetts-based Biogen. We want to ensure that appropriate patients only are the ones that get this product. SA studied the drug in people with early or mild disease who were evaluated using a scale measuring memory, thinking, and other basic scales. After 18 months, those who got Leqembi declined more slowly, a difference of less than half a point on the scale, than participants who received a dummy infusion. Some Alzheimer's patient experts say that delay is likely too subtle for patients or their families to notice. Interesting. But federal health advisors said the difference could be meaningful and recommended that FDA fully approve the drug at a public meeting in June. Yeah, they'll definitely have to keep an eye on this because, like, you know, when we talk about drug side effects, there is a, at the same time, you know, regardless of how much good any this or that drug is going to do, you kind of have to weigh that with how often or how frequent or how prevalent a lot of the side effects are. Unfortunately, there just aren't that many options for Alzheimer's patients, which is unfortunate. But, you know, it is what it is on that one. That's unfortunately kind of the risk you take when it comes to healthcare is, you take this, here are the downsides, here are the upsides, you know, you're working with what you got. Eventually you got to make some kind of decision. And for me, more than anything, I want to live in a world where that's like the hardest part of it, where all right, here are the, here are the risks, here are the benefits, here are the, here's kind of what you're looking at for, what you could be trading for, for possible reclamation of your memory, of your brain function and everything else. But, that's the hardest decision I want people to make. I don't want to live in a country, I am really fucking tired of living in a country where we treat people's healthcare. You have a right to life in the Constitution, and people talk all the time about life and everything else. But do we really protect it? I don't really know if we do. If we're not empowering people to make decisions to, preserve their life, to preserve their, their health, without deep and sometimes catastrophic financial decay, basically. Being crippled financially because you just want to stay healthy and keep your memory. But it's unfortunately a system we have. It's also why we fight for a better one. This is why we fight. Because it ain't just, they're not just gonna decide to give us free healthcare, or, well, socialized healthcare, I should say. It is out of the kindness of anybody's hearts. There's way too many systems, there's way too many structures that make a lot of money off of this stuff, off of your healthcare and my healthcare. And coming together through unions, coming together by communities, and coming together at the voting polls, quite frankly, is how we fight a lot of this. Political action is the way to move forward on that one. But either way, let me read chat because I see it's hitting zip. Okay. Let's see. Jesus gonna come down and strike us? Black or brown? I'm betting on another flood, not by God, but us. Climate so badly. Yeah, unfortunately, I saw some of the stories recently about the fucking heat wave in the South. Oh boy. Being crippled financially. In that case, I won't hide, but stand outside. It's not even Fallout or Metro. That's fair. The nuclear war stuff. A lot of people have kind of like made it kind of a bit of a joke, but I do kind of feel this a bit of cognitive dissonance when thinking about like Russia like firing nukes and ending the world, mainly because we've seen how kind of incompetent they've been with this Ukraine war. But then again, stranger things have happened. I don't think it's really, honestly, I don't think it's really worth worrying about. It's either going to happen or it's not. It's like anything else. You just move forward with the day you've got. It's kind of the way I look at it. Let's take a look. In that case, I won't hunt. Slave owners are given reparations. They were given reparations. Meanwhile, black people are still fighting for theirs till today. But I guess we should just come together and keep voting Dem, right? Well, no, we shouldn't come together and keep voting Dem. You should come together and like fundamentally change the party. The U.S. needs a complete overhaul. Both parties have become ungovernable, and only a revolution can fix this shit. Trust me, when the revolution comes, see, I'm just skeptical that we're going to get a revolution. Unfortunately, in the U.S., we don't have that kind of fervent, I don't know, we don't have that energy that I see in a lot of European countries when it comes to like that camaraderie of citizen to citizen. I don't know what it is. There just seems to be like this real inability for Americans to I think challenge the structures ahead of them. But okay. Let's go into the legally distinct fun half. And I figure yeah, we'll just do the thing. Yeah, let's just shift into the thing, and then we'll get into the Young Turks stuff, because this has kind of been making the rounds in the left spaces, and part of me doesn't really. Let's shift and then we'll get into it, shall we? Let's shift and let's get into it.
Could not shop at Target, or else you're gay.
Spit in my mouth, look in my eyes.
Just to simplify this, I think we're just going to use.
I may keep the pantyhose on. This feels kind of good, actually.
Larger than that, Charlie.
I live like a capitalist every single day.
Beat it up, N-word.
What is more important to our culture than jokers?
I don't like them putting chemicals in the water that turn the friggin' frogs gay.
I like black guys a lot.
The alpha males are back.
All right. So, can I get a, as far as I can tell, there's two of you having a bit of fun. Can I get a show of hands who here is on the, at the very least nominally, political left? Maybe even I'll take maybe centrist, I don't know. But usually people who are on Twitch aren't that centrist. Can I get a quick show of hands? Just curious. Most Americans still think the U.S. is better than Nazi Germany. Isn't it Germany? There's like been a really in Germany, like I've been hearing, I haven't dug deep into it, but I heard that some like really fashy party is like what, the second the like what, second most popular party there. If I'm wrong about that, please correct me, but I thought I heard something to that effect. It sounded pretty sussy. The AFD. Okay, yeah. Okay, yeah. Yeah, okay, that does sound familiar, yeah. I think I said this to my girlfriend, I think, a couple days ago. I don't know if, like, there's a lot of global, like, fascist movements cropping up around the world. You have, what is it, Giorgia Meloni, I think, in, like, Italy. Obviously the AFD in Germany, the Republican Party for the last like 20 years, basically since Obama. You have a lot of these these groups cropping up. I'm not sure how what their members are. Yeah, like I feel like, and you can let me know if I'm off base on this one. I feel like German society, to a degree that the United States hasn't, has reformed a lot of that a good bit of the like fasci instincts to a degree. I know that, you know, the Holocaust history, and specifically the history of the Nazis, is taught rather well in Germany. That's, you know, I have a few friends that are half or full German, and they've gone back, they've gone there to visit family and stuff, and they've told me stuff throughout the years. And from what I gather, there seems to be a strong educational grounding, I guess, to the way that I think they combat fascist sentiment, that I don't think, while it's like scary and while it's probably not great that a fascist party is gaining popularity, I'm skeptical to think that that's ever going to take hold the same way it was able to before. Again, this is just really a vibes one on me, but like, I don't know. Maybe I just have a little bit of more faith than others do when it comes to Germany. I don't know. It's all about Nazi Germany. People have been living too comfortably, though. They forgot their history. Yeah, that I guess that is true. I've always really revered the German practice of teaching, like, specifically Nazi history, very, very frankly, in a way that we don't do that in America for slavery. Like, we do cover it, and there is time spent on it, but I don't really think we really like, and part of it is because different regions of this country teach history very differently. In the South, like, you know, they're told a completely different framework for the beginning of the Civil War. It's why you hear like states' rights from Southerners a lot. But you know, I wish we taught our history the same way, or at least the era of slavery and Reconstruction, and the Civil Rights Movement, the way that the German system, at the very least, from what I understand, teaches about Nazi Germany and that regime. I think it's useful to know starkly the horrors of your history. I think it's a good teachable moment. You know, some people make it into like, oh, are you like, are you making people feel guilty for what? Like, stop it. You're being insecure on that one. Like, stuff like that is very, very annoying to me. It's like, you can either accept your country's history or you can't. You either like deal with it and try to improve going forward, or you don't. It's kind of how I look at it. Anyway, okay. So, if you're on the left, if you spend time on the internet, you probably know of the Young Turks. At the very least, if you're in America, you probably know of the Young Turks. The largest, left-leaning news network on YouTube, been around since, God, like, what, sometime in the early 2000s, I want to say. They've been around a very long time. And Anna Kasparian, host, executive producer, if I remember correctly, her title, took to the Adam and Sitch podcast over the July 4th weekend to air a lot of, I think, her grievances over her relationship with the left, specifically the left that's on Twitter. I've listened to most of the interview, not all of it, just because I didn't get around to all of it, but I listened to most of the interview. I still need to finish it, but a lot of people have been pulling clips, and I've seen some of it, and I've seen some of it out of context and in context. And it's my overall take at the beginning of this was, I saw some of the clips. I was willing to give a lot of charitability towards them. because I've been watching the Young Turks for quite a while. I probably discovered them in 2015, so a little bit less than 10 years, probably about 8 years now, that I started watching them. And to a degree, you know, it's a network that I really respect and that I really appreciated in terms of their commentary, their news coverage, and just kind of the community that they built there. As a leftist for a long time, living in America, it's a bit tough, especially before Bernie. You know, if you were a leftist before Bernie Sanders, there really wasn't this national, I think, like very like powerful movement. And while leftist organizations in each state and in each, you know, city and such are making a lot of progress nationally, there is a there's something to be said about kind of a national profile to leftism. And that's what I think Bernie really offered the movement to a degree, was a avatar of you know, really good you know, strategic politics and everything else, and really pulled, I think, a lot of people from just being Democrats to being like active Democrats, which will eventually kind of lead you towards at the very least, you know, sock Dems. But all of that being said, you know, it's unfortunate to kind of see where you know, Anna, the host of the main show, has kind of veered off a little bit. You know, she went on the interview, and I know I kind of restating what I said earlier. She went on the podcast, aired her grievances, and I want to take a look at kind of the response a little bit, and then we'll look at the clips, because I think what's more important, or at the very least my initial takeaway, was if Anna was advocating for leftist positions, she did a poor job. And after watching a little bit, it was really clear that it seems like she wants to distinguish herself from other leftists. That's seems like kind of the project that's taking place, that we're watching right now, is an effort to distinguish oneself as different, as you know, as the responsible leftist, as a real leftist, I'm not even 100% sure. But let's take a look at Rising's coverage of this, because again, this got quite a lot of airplay. I want to take a look at theirs mainly because Rising to me is a pretty center right, or at the very least right curious channel. I'm not the biggest fan of Rising, excuse me, or Breaking Points for that matter. But the way that I noticed that they frame this is what I think is going to be a problem going forward, which is this line in the sand, this tool that I think Anna's going to be used going forward to legitimize, validate, and pretty much put a badge on a lot of really like cringy and like bad takes from the right. So let's get into it. I've done enough preluding and everything else, and if you can tell, I'm not like not willing to talk about it, but I'll admit I didn't like, you know, Anna talked briefly about, you know, career you know, suicide, or, you know, career damage or whatever, and you know, I'll come right out and say it. You know, as I do this, I try to make this as professional as I can. I try to make this as, you know, organized as I can. I try to, you know, do all the things that, you know, one wants to do when they present politics and everything else. And a goal of mine, or at the very least a hope, is one day to catch the eye of somebody, and then, you know, maybe, you know, end up on the Young Turks. That I think would be really cool. It's a show, a program that I look up to, and to me, that, you know, that was always a goal of, like, you know, that would be really cool. That would be a thing that I'd be really proud of to do. And, you know, me doing this segment might be the thing that keeps me out of you know, that realm. And, you know, again, I'm very, very small. I have like 72 followers, I think. You should hit the follow button, so it's 73. But yeah, you know, anyway, let's get into it, shall we? Let's just go. I'm done caveating and everything else. Just get into the drama. Oh yeah, let me read this. The first generation survived fascism. The second generation remembers fascism. The third generation respects their grandparents and hates fascism. And the fourth generation forgets it all. Thinks fascism is a good idea again. That's tragic. Is it history? Bit of history repeating, I suppose. Anyway, let's go.
Young Turks' Anna Kasparian is catching heat for saying she has left the left.
I'm going through something very real and very sincere, and it's uncomfortable.
Also want to just say, it doesn't go unnoticed by me how excited Adam Friended looks to hear a lot of this stuff.
And it has not been an enjoyable process for me. It's been difficult. And so the internet being what it is, all sorts of people from all sorts of political ideologies have theories on like what's actually happening with me, right? And the main accusation, both from the left and the right, is that I'm grifting, which is hilarious because literally nothing has changed about my work life. I'm in the same place. I have the same audience. The audience doesn't like some of what I have to say or some of the new conclusions I've come to. And so I wanted to kind of set the record straight about what I have personally experienced. I don't know what my political labels are at this point, right? Because I feel like I don't really fit anywhere. And that's just full honesty. It's
All right. And how many times have we heard this? How many times have we done the why I left the left game? It's a bit of a tried and true. There's a lot of people who are already kind of calling this grifting already, you know. I think jumping on that whole, the whole, oh, she's changing her politics for money sort of stuff. And I don't think I'm there yet. But I will say I rejected a lot of that when I was watching other people, a few others' responses and a few other, obviously people on Twitter had fun with this. But, I gotta say, this is this is a tale as old as time, ladies and gentlemen.
again, very uncomfortable for me. And I want to say that out of any point in my adult life, this is probably the point where I'm the most malleable and open to new.
This comes after a transgender producer employed by the Young Turks posted a video sharing that they are leaving the network over what they say is Kasparian and co-host Cenk Uyghur's complicity in anti-LGBTQ sentiment.
Friend of the show, Alayemi Olarin, weighed in on the drama. She actually popped in on a live stream of a YouTube show called The Vanguard Boys to offer her perspective as they were covering the Anna Kasparian commentary and basically expressed some frustration that despite trying to stay out of it, she recently went on Young Turks to very patiently try to push back against some of the takes that they've had with respect to criminal justice issues.
Mafia.
She, as a public defender, has a lot of expertise in that area and a very distinct position that was different from theirs. And she has been tried to have constructive conversations, in her view, and been very cordial and polite to them. And still, she gets a lot of pushback of a less cordial nature, I think is how she would describe it. And so there was some...
I do remember that interview being pretty contentious for like... There wasn't really much of a need.
Even though everyone has kind of gone out of their way
that.
to try to be patient with Anna Kasparian and to give her a lot of grace as a member of the community, that there's some frustration with how she's characterizing how she's being treated by the left. Whether or not you want to call it a grift or what have you.
What does grift even mean at this point? I would use that word to
for fuck's sake. Okay. This is also why I hate this. Why I don't really watch Rising very much, except really to respond to it. Also, this guy is a fucking moron. The idea that you don't know what grifting is, especially in the year of our Lord 2023, get the fuck out of here. You know exactly what grifting is, but the thing is that there's only one direction that anybody grifts, and it's to the right. And the reason for that is because there's so much more infrastructure, there's so much more money on the right that there just simply isn't on the left. It's just there isn't like, I mentioned it earlier about like, it'd be cool to be on the Young Turks one day, and I don't know if the segment's gonna fuck me over on that one at any point, but like go ahead and watch any of any like leftist streamers, any of them. Most of them are doing stuff out of like bedrooms, like very few of us have these studios like Matt Walsh, like Ben Shapiro, like PragerU, like any of these guys. Not the infrastructure behind leftist media, especially on the internet. And in this space, it's dude, like these are all cobbled together. I'm running off of a fucking gaming laptop, which I love. You've done such a good job, laptop. But like, we all know what the grift is. The grift is you act like Dave Rubin, because you have no real political identity, no real political drive or opinions, and you get paid a lot of money to be the gay who says the anti-gay stuff, or the gay who says the pro-religion stuff. That's all it is. We see it with Amir Odom as well. He's another person that we cover every once in a while on here, who I do like responding to. But that's the reason, because there's going to be somebody who reaches out. If I had started this channel and did more right-wing content, do you know how many people come into my chat and like harass the shit out of me constantly while I'm trying to cover stories, while I'm, if I'm watching Tim Pool, I have to deal with little Tim Pool like beanies coming in and bothering me and trying to defend him like on the spot. Like, yeah, there's quite a lot of infrastructure and quite a lot of there's quite a lot of a circular or populist culture in that area where they're always like the amount of leftists I get on my stream is minuscule compared to the amount of right wingers, which tells me that they're searching for left wing streams to go in and harass people in. But either way, like, come on, stop with this. Oh, I don't know what grifting even means. Like, what does that even mean?
Describe someone, I guess, who I suspect is insincerely pretending to change their beliefs for more clout or to reach a bigger audience or different audience.
Let me be clear. He's pretending not to know because it's in favor of the group that people grift to pretend that it doesn't exist, because grifting is kind of an insult. You're painting somebody as being dishonest, but like being dishonest for the right wing because you want more money makes the right wing look bad, because their whole marketing scheme is that they're for the average man, when they're not. They're funded by Koch brothers. They're funded by all sorts of very wealthy donors and investors. So like, that's why he's playing like, oh, what really is grifting? I mean, I know it's this thing, but he's being dishonest. He's just being dishonest. That's the part that's annoying to me.
Maybe that applies
I also
to
don't think she's a
certain
grifter,
figures who are
but,
ostensibly
like,
progressive, and now, they still say they're progressive, but they're, mostly talking about right-wing stuff, or where they happen to agree with the right wing, maybe on trans issues or COVID or something. I don't know. I frankly don't know if this applies to Anna. It sounds like maybe she's sincerely changed her mind. I mean, she's consciously saying, I don't really associate myself with all leftist views anymore. Maybe. By
the way, I also think that's what's actually happening.
I've changed.
I do think Anna's politics are just
changed. I don't think any of the policies I really support over the last few years, but living in a city as crime has gotten worse made me rethink. Again, not like fundamentally change my outlook on criminal justice reform, but made me a little bit more inclined to go, well, maybe there's something that needs to be confronted here. It's not a grift. It's just like
I had to move
the experience
my AC.
of life. I
Usually
hadn't really
it's
thought
here.
about vaccines.
Usually my AC is on this little table here, but like the back of the chair blocks so much of it. Oh my goodness, so much better immediately. Like I'm actually getting airflow. It's very hot back here. I can't wait till the winter comes back around and it's cold out and I can just open the window and it can be a chilly ass like 55 in here while I stream.
Vaccine mandates very hard for most of my life, where I would have said you should have them for schools.
I'll tell you
and now I've thought about it. Now I have a radically different view on it.
Specifically,
what did you say? I'm sorry, I didn't hear the example.
But made me a little bit more inclined to go, well, maybe there's something that needs to be confronted here. It's not a grift. It's just like the experience of life. I hadn't really thought about vaccine mandates very hard for most of my life, where I would have said you should have them for schools.
I'll tell you
and now I've thought about it. Now I have a radically different.
Oh yeah, keep in mind the reason why people are saying that Anna's grifting is mainly because she has expressed in the past, less than a year, I believe, within the last like 12 months, she has expressed and criticized people taking on the positions that she's taking right now. That's also a big part of why people are throwing around the grifter allegation, because like, when Anna went on Twitter and had her meltdown about birthing person, people immediately responded with a video of herself calling out people for making a big stink about inclusive language that's not harmful, that doesn't do anything like harmful to anybody. It's just inclusive language. And like, she understood that then. So the question is like, either you don't understand it now, which means I have to say you're kind of stupid, and I don't want to call you stupid, or you're lying, in which case you're not dumb. Grifting to the right, making more money like a Dave Rubin is the smart thing to do, is the like prudent thing to do. Like, yeah, you make more money, go over there. They'll pay you a lot more money. Charlie Kirk is an utter fucking failure, but he gets paid a lot more than I do. But you know, it like comes down to principles, unfortunately.
Different view on it.
Specifically, the argument about it being a grift is this. Anna has demonstrated a really competent understanding of why it is that the left,
thank you,
many
Brianna.
people on the left, think it's perfectly reasonable and even good to respect people's pronouns, to use
it doesn't cost you anything either.
language that
Respecting people's pronouns
acknowledges
doesn't cost you anything.
what many in the mainstream and on the right characterize as goofy, if not harmful, things like the phrase birthing people, or the most recent controversy is referring to trans men as having bonus holes instead of vaginas because of their dysmorphia. And
Sorry.
you know, Anna and the
Well, okay, so let's wait. So let's break that down a bit. What's harmful about it? This would be trans, like, or this would be trans men. Like, the you know what? I want to look at the story because I've heard, because Anna already characterized this in a certain way. What was it? Bonus holes, Christ above, is going viral. Wonder why. Let's see. After spending a little time on social media, went viral after conservatives like Leo Kears and Ollie London tweeted about it. So keep in mind, this is the people who Anna's aligning herself with. Is Leo Kears, who I don't know, and Ollie London, who got bodied by Ethan Klein. Recommends using the term bonus hole instead of vagina to avoid offending trans people. This isn't satire, by the way. Everyone, okay, let's see. Story continues. The LGBT Foundation recommend using vagina to avoid offending. Is that this person's tweet? Sorry, I don't know if that's this. Oh, it is this person's tweet, isn't it? Yeah, is it like this Kears person's tweet? Oh no, I hope I don't open too many tweets. Okay, yeah, so it's this person's tweet. Sorry, I gotta go back to dark mode. I don't like. I wish there was like a thing that always puts stuff in the dark. Like I have a switch, so I guess that's fine. Luckily, there's some people on social media that have more nuance. The actual context is trying to find inclusive language to discuss the anatomy of trans men, but why bother actually reading? Yeah, okay, that's what I thought. The actual, yeah. Okay, give me the, what's it called? To be clear, since apparently this has to be spelled out, no one, literally no one, is saying running the word bonus hole. This is not a tweet. Okay, good. Is mandatory for anyone to use, by be they cis, trans, or whatever. It's simply suggested presented for trans men and non-binary people, and presumably anyone who prefers it. So literally, it's a, hey, what if we had a word for trans men that like didn't make them feel insecure? Wouldn't that be cool? And then like Anna freaked out about it on the Adam and Sitch show. So that's always fun. Some online, yeah, we already know. Vernacular takeover. Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, yeah, because it wasn't a suggestion, but it was literally a suggestion as a like alternative term for trans men, not one for cis people. Unless you want to use it, if you want to use it, you can. Like this is all about just giving you more choices. Anyway,
has, and I don't know if we have this clip, has articulated very clearly why, if you want to be accommodating or kind to those people, you can think dysmorphia is mental illness and characterize it however you want, but if you acknowledge that they obviously are having some dissonance with the way they were born versus how they feel that they are in a clinical setting, using language that is enabling them to get the health care they need, it's hard for me to see why anyone would have a problem with that. And Anna Kasparian has articulated that exact belief within like the last year, arguing against conservatives who
Brianna
would
is
reject
restating
that kind of
my
language.
entire
and
bit,
now,
but that's okay.
Without any real reckoning with that previous clip that's gone viral many times now.
It could be politically costly to invest too much in identity politics. So, okay, let's talk about that really, really quickly. Do I think it can be costly to invest too much into identity politics. I don't think that's ever been demonstrated. And here's my reasoning. Quite frankly, political movements build coalitions like across certain groups, demographics, interest groups, all sorts of different people come together and you build coalitions around those, right? It's kind of the way I try to think about politics, or at the very least, like, again, try to sometimes, is remembering that, like, what the Democratic Party is made up of a lot of different groups kind of in favor of a range of things that just don't align with the Republican Party, but not necessarily all agree on the same thing. There are people who prefer to talk about economics. There are people who prefer to talk about social justice issues. Now, the real question, because we all come under the banner generally of voting Democratic, the question is, can we do both? And I don't think that there's any reason for us to believe we can't do both. That's first of all. Secondly, what we talk about in terms of identity politics, in terms of what becomes popular to talk about. We'll take the bonus hole thing, right? The right wing, guys like the Kearse guy and Ollie London, want to point out this incredibly small, like this one group in the UK mentioning, hey, what about this inclusive language to refer to trans men's, reproductive organs? What if we, could we develop, terms for that are like a little bit more inclusive? And they seize upon that and they build it up to be ridiculous, right? They build it up to be this, like, oh my God, you're no longer going to be, your vagina is no longer called a vagina. Now the woke left has redubbed it bonus hole or something weird like that, right? And it sounds really ridiculous and really stupid. But people hear that and go, up, the woke left. And it's mainly because a lot of times their goal is to prop up and astroturf these non-issues, these non-stories into real stories, into real issues. I remember while talking to a friend of mine, we were arguing about trans rights and about trans people in general. And he sends me this video of some TikToker who went by neo-pronouns, which I don't use neo-pronouns, but that's one person. Their argument to me was about look at this one person on TikTok, and it's just it's one person. Why are this does not affect any structures. This doesn't affect any healthcare rights of anybody. Why are we talking about this? But somebody promoted it to him on Twitter or whatever social media site he uses, and it became like a thing that he had a strong opinion on. And there's only at the end of the day, we cannot validate this dumb bullshit by just by abandoning and saying, maybe they're right, maybe bonus hole is the hill that isn't the hill we need to die on, or maybe we need to concede that bonus hole is going too far, when no, they're just pumping up a lot of bullshit to get you to to validate the nonsense and their strategy of making the left as a broad movement and painting it with the most fringe of fringe takes that don't again affect anybody. That's the goal, and that's the problem with what Anna's doing, is her shedding light on I would have never known about the bonus hole story, but I did because Anna decided to bring it up, and because Anna decided to freak the fuck out about it. Even though, again, if she had read about it, which is weird because she's good about doing her research, but if she had read about it, she would have known that, oh wait, this is a non-story. This is just the right pumping up some ridiculous anecdote they heard to paint an entire movement, an entire group as ridiculous or absurd or any of the other things. We can do both, and we shouldn't be validating these nonsense stories the way Anna is. You call them stupid, you embarrass the person who brings it up, and you move the fuck on to the next topic. That's what should be happening. But because Anna's, I don't know, because she's, I don't know what the fuck is going on, but it became a thing that people had to talk about. Let's see. I would point to the Supreme Court justice who didn't define the word woman. I don't believe. Well, okay. So from a legal standpoint, I don't think you can come up with a legal definition of woman, because not every woman is going to fit into a legal definition. Because you have to keep in mind the way legal definitions work, there isn't wiggle room. A woman has to be XYZ and nothing else. Like, or at the very least, there's not that fluidity. Like, what woman is linguistics. It's not biology. I've grown really tired of people bringing up biology when what we're talking about when we talk about women, the term women and what it refers to is linguistics. That's all it refers to. It refers to a bundle of traits that we associate with females, but not always what's the word I'm looking for? Not always consistent with. Anyway,
she has reversed course on that particular issue. And after years, I mean, Young Turks is the oldest left.
Murder Tom, I would strongly go and check out some of Anna's deep dives on housing specifically. She really likes, she's a big fan of covering housing stories. Anna Kasparian is a good reporter. I don't know where this is coming from. And also they've already addressed the whole Armenian genocide thing. Because Cenk was a bit of a genocide denier, and Anna got him to change his stance on that one. So might do your homework a little bit on that one.
Media institution, I believe that there is, a real front runner in the online media space. After years of speaking very specifically and knowledgeably about any number of criminal justice issues, with the world being what it is for all of that time, crime didn't just come anew during this time. Nothing has really changed substantively in the way of the world. A sudden decision to say, well, the left just doesn't care about victims of crime. I mean, some people make that argument and they don't know better. The left's argument isn't that it's not horrible when people are victims of crime on subways or in their communities. The left's argument isn't that we should let gun violence go unchecked.
And keep in mind, if my memory serves me correctly, Anna only started doing a lot of this, a lot of the crime wave stories after herself had a interaction with a homeless person. So it's the case that the thing happened to her and she let that thing paint her broad politics, when what she suffered from was, honest to God, and I mean this, no different than stories I've heard of women at bars. I've heard her story of where she was accosted on the street or whatever outside her apartment. And yeah, was that probably a really traumatizing moment? Absolutely. But nothing I heard about that was even unique to crime, was unique to anything. It was, honestly, I've heard that story from other women I know who go to bars. That's not that unique of an experience. It's bad, certainly, but to then pivot to this we need to talk about crime more because I was involved in this thing that was really traumatized. You need to take a step back and go, okay, what about that experience was traumatizing for me, and examine a little bit of that. I think, not this now we're going to talk about crime more frequently. I just don't, especially when crime and the way that we address crime in societies and communities is different from how you address individual individual crimes, being in or around individual crimes is different from, I think, the macro perspective of crime as a whole, statistically. You know what I'm saying? But anyway,
checked because it would be bad to arrest people who murder. That's not what criminal justice reform is about. It's not what police abolition is about.
I think that's a bit
it's
reductionist.
Not what any of this is about. The whole question is whether
you're
or not
entitled
we
to your
can
opinion, Murder Cop.
lower crime rates more effectively than throwing money at police budgets has done by addressing the root causes of the crime, right? And Anna knows that. So to know that, to have said that, to have articulated that so many times in the past, and now take a different approach where you characterize, I would argue, mischaracterize what the left agenda has been. The left agenda that you have been a part of is causing people to really wonder what's motivating that shift. And given that we live in a media climate where, like it or not, there is an enormous appetite for people who leave the left. Dave Rubin is often brought up as an example of this. People who say, I'm an independent thinker. I can't be put in a box. I'm willing to challenge the establishment. I'm really willing to challenge orthodoxies. Sometimes that's authentic, and that's fine. But we also have to acknowledge that there's an appetite for that. And one wonders, given some of the struggles that all online creators have dealt with, especially in like the post kind of Bernie world on the left, whether or not there is an effort to attract a bigger audience by taking on subjects that are hot topics right now, and that the left typically has been on the less sexy side of.
Yeah, I mean, you would know that better than me.
Jesus, my dude is fucking
observing it from a
stumped.
distance, it looks to me like whatever the Bernie wave has crested, and it's harder.
I also don't believe this. A lot of people, I think, say that like the Bernie like era is over, and certainly we've seen like, I think, the sunsetting of that original what's the word I'm looking for, that that original spike, that original like spark. But I do think Bernie's legacy will not just be his presidential runs. I think a lot of his legacy going forward will be the activism and kind of, I think, the worker-centered perspective, I suppose, or the worker-centric like lens that people more understand and fit into now, much more than before Bernie. We did not have this many union movements cropping up in the United States before Bernie, and I attribute a lot of that to his awakening of a lot of people's politics. I will, if there's one person I'll admit I stand the fuck out of Bernie Sanders.
I mean, we can tell from the kinds of things we talk about on this.
People's inability to afford rent, and their medical debt, and the cost of food, and the exorbitant cost of education. Yes, these are issues which poll as people's priorities, but which they don't seem especially interested in hearing about in a news context.
Yeah, or at least on YouTube, right? I mean,
Sure,
the model for Anna's show and for our show, and you gotta talk about what the viewers are interested in. So
tell me about it.
You don't gotta. I mean, Young Turks is hardly. I mean, there are a lot of different, very successful independent media shows that are still very supportive of trans rights and issues. So it's hardly the case, they think,
including
that,
this
well,
one.
if you want Young Turks to survive, they've got to go anti.
Is she not supportive of trans?
No, she is. She is. And the point that she's making in that clip is that she still supports people's rights to health care and to housing and all of those substantive rights, which I think is important. And I don't think it's useful to lump her in with your average.
We need some middle ground language to refer to some of the requests or asks coming from activists on behalf of trans issues, that to use terminology that is, again, cringe or something.
The thing.
That's
Who's
not.
making the
I'm not gonna. I don't want to deride people as mentally. The conservatives will say, some conservatives, Matt Walsh, I believe, are mentally deranged. That's really mean and alienating and not true. And you shouldn't diagnose.
Well, that is kind of the point. Like the my friend, the point with Matt Walsh is to be mean and alienating because he wants to Holocaust transes. That's literally why. But
knows people from a distance.
Right.
Moving on.
Or also, no, we'll just say
the
whatever
problem.
anyone wants, no matter how awkward that language is.
But here's the problem. One UK cancer group, I think.
Jesus.
So not our country, and not indicative of the broader views even within that country. Mm-hmm. One group has a conversation about whether or not it would make trans men feel better to use terminology other than vagina when they don't identify as women. Mm-hmm. And suddenly, across the pond, Anna Kasparian, who ostensibly has all these other concerns as a leftist, is making that into a national case where she is saying, you don't refer to...
Let's also be clear. Anna didn't go on the main show and talk about this, but she did go on Sitch and Adams' show, which obviously she knew was going to get a lot of attention. But like, she went on that show to distinguish what her politics are in contrast to the rest of the left, which kind of tells you that, like, for as much as Anna wanted in that interview a lot of the time to paint herself as like a serious leftist, that flies in the face of this entire like bonus hole story. Like, you're the serious leftist and this is the thing that you're spending time even thinking about? Like, come on.
My vagina as a bonus hole, which nobody ever did, right? Like, the whole conversation
I still want to know
is about whether or not
who
trans
called her a
men
birthing
should have
person.
that term applied to them. And this really maps on to the earlier controversy she was engaged with in the spring, where she insisted that it was disrespectful to
God,
her
was
to
that
be
just in the
referred
spring?
to as a birthing
Yeah.
woman. I think it's fine for her to articulate that she would prefer to be called a woman and not a birthing person, or whatever she prefers to be called. Anna Kasparian, God bless, whatever she wants to be called. But it is dishonest to say that someone else who wants to be called something else is infringing on your self-identification by simply talking about their own self-identification. And that's why people were upset. No one could find the human being that once referred to Anna Kasparian as a birthing person. No one could source this person who allegedly has infringed upon her rights to self-identification by insisting on her being a birthing person other than a woman. I think we can all agree that her self-identification matters, and I'm happy to, and only have, referred to her as a woman. But now she and others seem to be infringing on other people's rights to be referred to as they want to be referred to. If Jordan Peterson, who...
And also keep in mind, the argument that Anna's been making is not too indifferent to the argument that Sol Invictus in chat mentioned earlier about like whether like you know, the identity politics is like too costly. Because watching that interview, it became obvious that like she's grown a lot more I think impatient. That was kind of, we'll take a look at clips from the actual interview. I just kind of want to get like a bit of a different take on it. But we'll kind of go over that. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it, actually. Let's...
Who was it that said that...
Let's let Brianna finish
claimed
her
that
bit.
Being called cis is a pejorative? Was it Jordan Peterson?
Oh, yeah, was it?
Was
that
someone from
JBP?
Elon.
Said they were gonna not
Or Elon?
allow.
Oh
I don't
my
know.
goodness.
You know, it's difficult to... I don't know how else one refers to, you know, if you want to be called, you know, born biological man, a man, whatever.
I mean, I think the
you
point
know,
of that was just
A
to deny
bio-
that the trans
a
category
bio-
is
right, and
male.
that's the
A
problem.
bio male and a
so
bio,
the
like,
word
what is-
cis doesn't exist because you want to stigmatize people who aren't trans or anything, but if you have a word trans and you're trying to identify, say that someone's not trans, you can say they're not trans. That's fine, I guess. But cis
You
is
would
just a word
say
that means
they're
not
a man,
trans.
or you just say a woman.
Well, no, I wouldn't, because the whole point of the matter is that trans women identify as women. They describe themselves and believe that they are and feel and experience the world as women.
Right.
And so they want something that distinct. There's a term,
Right,
a
that's
need
what
for
the
a term to
argument
distinguish.
is of.
Exactly. So the war against cis is not a war.
Cis is really just an adjective. It's no different than tall, short, fat, skinny, hot, ugly, I don't whatever other adjectives. How do you know, here's a question, chat. How do you describe the women in your life? You know, do you call them what adjectives do you use? It's like those. Like,
against their self-identification. It's really a war against trans
Gay,
people's right to
I
identify
guess that'd be
as
another
trans.
one. I don't know. But
And
like,
that's really
it's just an
illuminating.
adjective.
So when someone who like
Well, no,
Elon
you
or
can
whomever,
identify as trans. You're a man. You're a trans man, etc.
well, no, that's like saying I have a yellow piece of paper and a white piece of paper, and I'm a paper and
That is
you're
what you
not
have.
because you're white paper. No, they're both paper, but this one's yellow and this one's white.
That's paper.
This is also
That's
paper.
yellow paper.
This is also paper. And unless you're saying, and you have every right to say this, unless you're saying that in no way, shape, or form does anybody's identity matter, and if you're a trans woman, you're really a man, and that's a stance that a lot of people have.
You're a trans woman.
Right, but they're both paper. They're both women is the argument. They're both women. One's a cis woman and one's a trans woman.
What we're saying is we don't need really a separate category for this, which is like, you know, we would stack the papers up to the ceiling versus like 3 of those. And we're not trying to disinclude the yellow papers.
You literally are. Not you, but I'm saying.
well, what he's trying to do is distinguish a difference, which like at the end of the day, like you don't like from a political point of reference, like you don't need to distinguish something if there's not really much to distinguish. What's the difference between a trans woman and a woman? Not really much. Like, they're a trans woman is just somebody who was a man, probably was identified as a man when they were younger, and now does not do that, and now they purport more to excuse me, more to like womanhood. So there you go, like they're just women. Now I don't know if it's like I guess whether it's offensive to call somebody a trans woman instead of just a woman kind of just comes down to like your personal interaction. Like if you met another person who was a trans woman and you referred to them as such, and then they said, like, can you just say woman? Like, you know, that's probably a thing the same way that, like, you know, if like you go up to your friend and you're like, hey, what's up, fat fuck, as like a joke, but they're like, hey man, like, look, like, I get it, we're friends, yada yada yada, but like, could you, you know, you can call me a dumb fuck, I'm okay with that, but like, can we take it easy on the fat stuff? I'm a bit insecure about that. Or, you know, it's just being nice to people. I don't understand this this need, or like this I guess enthusiasm around saying stuff to people that like makes them feel bad or makes them feel negative. I don't know where this comes from.
I'm not saying the yellow paper is
it's paper.
Tree. It's
no,
yeah, it's yellow paper.
You're dancing around trying to avoid calling this thing paper. It is paper.
Whatever. I don't care.
But that's the point. So you don't have to agree with it.
No, I'm avoiding.
I mean, yeah, and it is. A bit of it is aversion to change, and a lot of it is semantics. But like, here are the two things we need to recognize with any of these conversations. There are always two different like arenas that we're having every one of these trans conversations about. One of them is on the legal grounds. The other is on the interpersonal one. Interpersonally, you're gonna have trans people who have no problem being called trans woman, trans men. It's like some of them do, some of them don't. The same way that you're going to see cis women who don't mind being called cis women and who do mind being called cis women. There is no real like there isn't this like 100% like it's not like a it's not universal. That's what I'm looking for. Like, you're going to have a broad range of personal interactions with people. The place where like I get really concerned is when we're talking about policy and when we're in the much more like legal arena. When we're talking about the legal arena, that's when, to me, it's a lot more important. The interactions you're going to have are going to be the interactions you're going to have with individuals. But how we write laws and how we like define things on a legal manner is incredibly important, because that does set the boundaries, that sets the framework for how our laws affect or don't affect people. That's like the big thing. That's like the other one, which I think is more important. You're individual, but like what I find is Anna has these personal, like individual, like one-on-one, or like somebody she knows. She has these negative interactions and then takes to Twitter to fucking litigate it. And I'm like, and like to me, it's like, no, like talk to whoever the fuck called you a cis woman and tell them you didn't appreciate that. But like, stop coming to the internet looking for people to fucking like clap and go, oh yes, you were offended by cis woman, you're right, you should have been. Like, no, you're just looking for flowers for for a show you didn't perform in. Like, get the fuck out of here with that. Like, that shit's nonsense. Anyway, just a yellow paper. Okay, I guess because if there's a piece of yellow paper and white paper side by side, and you ask to be passed a piece of paper, you will probably want the white one. Well, wait. It's just the yellow paper. Well, so here's the thing. So depending on what you, again, this goes back to like, if we write the laws in a way that leaves out the option for you to pass somebody the yellow paper, that's a problem. If like the fact that you would pass them the white paper and not the yellow paper, that's again an interpersonal interaction. Now, that certainly does have some bearing, I think, on societal trends and acceptance of like, I guess, yellow paper usage in this country. But like, to me, that's more of like the more people, use yellow paper, the more that when you ask them to pass them a piece of paper, you're just going to get past whatever they get, regardless of what the color is. It's just, again, I care more about the political arena, about the actual law stuff. What's a black piece? Anyway. Is a black piece of paper an option? Sure, why not? Right, and William the author, I kind of like, you're kind of getting at it a little bit, because it's like, who cares what the paper is? But like, the dude on the right here wants to like mention like, well, no, but like, I want to distinguish between the yellow paper and the white paper. And Brianna's whole argument is like, they're both paper. They both can be written on. Like the reason, and this isn't really a great analogy to begin with, but like, there's no need for a distinction here. And like, by imposing a distinction, you are trying to create an understanding that they are different. And like, and when there are differences, people tend to treat things differently. And again, that still comes back to, when we treated black people differently, there were laws passed against black people's rights. Same goes for, every other minority group in this country. But yeah, it's just, it leads to tension, I think.
In calling this stack some other terminology here, it's just paper.
Look, I think it's evident.
Oh, I can't wait to hear the answer.
Hypothetical, that this example, exactly what the issue is here. So just own it. People can own Anna.
Solon, do you know the real reason?
Anna believes this. I don't think that she believes that trans women. Well, I don't know what she believes anymore, but I wouldn't have thought that she would believe that trans women,
which is unfortunate,
don't have the right to identify as women. If everyone respects self-identification, if the issue is Anna's ability to identify as a woman with a vagina, then it's also a trans person's right to identify as a woman with a vagina if they've post-op, or a woman with a penis, or a woman who can give birth, and all these things that I know sound
precisely
silly because
there's not ink. You just print it and you're done.
Our understanding of the world in the sex binary has been,
I believe, for the most of the time with paper, I think like, when they pull it off the, God, I'm gonna sound stupid as fuck because I don't really know the process, but I believe there's like a bleaching process, and then obviously if you want colored paper, they like, put ink on it and shit. But yeah, the white one's the most cost efficient because it doesn't cost you anything after you bleach it.
That we were all raised with and has been existent in some form or another in Western society since time immemorial.
White paper's not racist.
I say Western society because there have been differences in different societies that have had more more sex categories than that.
I think we can accommodate without reinventing the original term, is what I would.
Also, there is white lead.
Even with the example
if you had mechanical pencils back in the day,
for the sake of,
there is white lead.
The conservative or the position.
Yeah, and I understand. I know you're steel manning this, and I think
asking
that's helpful, and I appreciate you doing that. But the question, like, I just want to be really clear. I don't think that Anna Kasparian or anybody in the world is wrong to have feelings about how they are described in the world. You can have that, but at a certain point, you have to acknowledge that other people's self-identification may have implications for you. If I want to identify as the greatest person on earth, you might have feelings about that if you think that you're the greatest person on earth, or maybe you think your mom is the greatest person on earth. So my self-ID is going to abut your sense of how that reflects on everybody else, right?
Right.
And so you have to make a decision. It's within your right to say, Brianna, I'm not going to call you the greatest person on earth because I don't agree with that. And that's fine. But don't pretend like that. My right is still to self-identify that way. And everyone has to make a decision in a society about whether or not they want to be polite, gracious, kind to people who are in different places, and But if I meet Muhammad Ali, if I were to have met Muhammad Ali, I'm not going to be like, you're not the greatest, actually. You know what I mean?
That's probably a better analogy, not my favorite. But all right, maybe we should take a look at the actual clips in question, shall we? Oh, did I have this out of order? I did have this out of order.
Because I think that there are
I print all my books on black paper, dark mode paperback. I wouldn't be mad at that.
some stereotypes.
All right. Anyway, yeah, Sitch and Adam. This is the actual show. where all the stuff comes from. Let's we'll
left has kind of bought into about what the arguments are on the other side. And, you know,
did somebody add music to this? Fuck, wait. Can I? Is that song? That song is isn't that okay? You know, I'll find out when YouTube or Twitch yells at me. I'm just gonna open both of those. On the side here, I thought, aren't those public domain now? The song that's playing, the that's like public domain, right? I'm not gonna get in trouble for that. Hope not. I don't know. We'll find out. Okay. Anyway.
To misrepresent what the other side is actually saying. It
Don't
actually
you dare
makes us
fucking
weaker.
get me in trouble.
It is what it is. And they can get as
That's a
offended
song
as they
about
want.
yeah,
they can get
it's
as upset
public
as they
domain,
want.
right? I know the song.
I don't really care.
I mean, I don't know the name
I'm
of
not
it,
a
but
mouthpiece
I know the song.
for anyone, any political party, any political group. My obligation is to share the facts of the story with my audience to the best of my ability, and then do good faith
Probably.
analysis.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought.
Stories. And if
Song's
they don't like my analysis,
old as
they
fucking
can make
time.
whatever decision they want about whether they support or watch the show.
Like I said, I'm just gonna keep these open. Just okay.
You know, one of the things that Jesse Singles says all the time that I love, and he says it repeatedly, is it's complicated, because it is. Like, all of these issues are way more complicated than the way they're being portrayed in partisan media.
Okay,
And
I think
so
okay. It only
what
played a little bit, so I think we're good.
Is actually
Also, who the fuck is this
understand
Jesse
those
Single
complexities, but
person?
here's the other thing.
It is. Oh, thank you
Understand
so much.
the
I
other
appreciate that.
side in good faith, okay? Because I
Jesse-
think that there are some stereotypes
this
that the
person?
left has kind of bought into about what the arguments are on the other side, and you know, it doesn't make us sharper to misrepresent.
I don't know who this person is. This is the first time. This podcast was the first time I heard their name. Let's see. American journalist, written publications, New York Times, Atlantic, Substack. Yeah, what's new? Much of Singles' writings deals with social sciences, typically in relation to gender, sexuality, and or progressivism. Oh dear. Previously edited New York Times Behavioral Science, Vertical Science of Us. 2021, he published a book, The Quick Fix, about the failings of popular psychology. Singles' extensive writing on transgender issues has attracted controversy, particularly in his 2018 cover story for The Atlantic, When Children Say They're Trans. Since the success of this story, Single has dedicated much effort to discussing transgender issues from a skeptical point of, god damn it, attracted further controversy. Political orientation is often been described as liberal but heterodox. Though, okay. Let's see. What do we got? Wrote the cover story August 2018 issue. The long-form piece includes profiles of several adolescents who identify or previously identified as transgender, interviews with young gender clinicians, and reviews of some of the studies, statistics, and protocols related to youth transition. Atlantic published 4 letters from parents of transgender children reacting to Single's article with a mixture of criticism and praise. Alexandria Nissan, writing for Columbia Journalism Review, stated that despite being fact-checked and the story was considered transphobic by many readers, journalists, and activists, and suggested that more diversity and editorial oversight could have averted the problem. Among the controversial aspects of the article was how much it focused on the stories of multiple adolescents who had desisted or detransitioned. Okay, that is reverted to identifying. Okay, we're aware of that. In the article, Single acknowledges that the story of detransitioners are sometimes viewed with skepticism and suspicion by the trans community, in part because they have been used by conservatives. Alex Barash, writing in Slate, faulted the article for not including the story of a single happy, well-adjusted trans teen in its 9,000 words. That is, okay. This complaint was echoed in one of the parents' penned letters published by The Atlantic, which said that the 2 stories of happily transitioned teens were buried deep in the article. Barash also criticized Singal for failing to include the stories of individuals who had detransitioned for reasons other than realization that they were not trans, such as social stigma. Some commenters questioned whether it was appropriate for Singal, a cisgender man, to study. Okay, that's fucking stupid. Anybody of any identity can study whatever they want. There's like I remember the Majority Report had like a black woman who was like a professor of like history around like Ukraine and shit, and I was like, that's fucking cool. Nobody would tell that lady like, hey, you're not Ukrainian, you can't do Ukrainian news and history. Other criticisms focused on the description of trans healthcare, which some said was designed to quote scare readers into not letting young trans people be themselves. as well as the fact that detransitioners make a relatively small subset of those who access transition-related care. Okay, yeah. So this was 2018. From what we know, you know, the rate of detransition is very low. And if I remember correctly, I'd have to look it back up and try to find it again. A lot of it was cost and then social stigma, and then a smaller percentage of that was like a disillusionment, I guess, with their transgenderism. Anyway, I just wanted to get some clarity on who that person was. Sorry.
Represent what the other side is actually saying. It actually makes us weaker. If you understand what their arguments are, it'll then allow you to reflect on what your own weaknesses might be in regard to the arguments that you're making. And so, and then one other thing, and this was an unexpected outcome that I was talking to my husband about just last night. I've been a lot happier lately, like a lot happier. And I think it's because once you actually...
Okay, so also, so here's like my thing. Here's my thing also with this entire podcast or this entire like episode of their show. I went through the comment section a little bit, and as we're watching this, I've been kind of glancing at the chat. And if you notice, like, I don't know the political alignment of the show, but I noticed that like it is very left skeptical and seems very willing to play the, oh man, she's like seen the light, i.e. the right-wing perspective, or she's heading more to the right, meaning she's like being less of a crazy lefty. A lot of people seem to have gotten the impression, not that like Anna came to like a better position or that like there was any kind of evidence, just that they were happy to see her adopt their talking points, adopt their framing, and adopt kind of their perspective on this stuff, which is a bit concerning because it shows that like it doesn't seem like she went on the show to do anything other than kind of seek an audience, quite frankly. It seems like she wanted an audience that she knew would be favorable to some of these takes and kind of hid in that crowd for cover, I suppose.
Look, I want to make the distinction and like draw out a caveat. I'm not talking about like far right, like militia members. I'm not talking about those people. I'm talking about just mainstream conservatives, Republicans, whatever. Once you actually understand what their arguments are or where they're coming from, it's a lot more difficult to be hyperbolic about things, right? Yeah. And so you kind of start seeing the world around you for what it really is. And there's a certain amount of fear that kind of starts to dissipate, a certain amount of like hyperbolic
what do you mean, Solon?
That starts to go away. And you start to see things a lot more clearly. And the world isn't as messed up as people would have you believe. And that's a good thing. Now, some people might get super offended at me saying that because they've completely bought into the hyperbolic thinking and they think the world's coming to
misinterpreted
an end.
me. What was your interpretation of me to start with? Now I'm curious what you thought of me to begin with.
We need to be realistic about what's actually transpiring in the country.
Are you going to say that I'm a lot more honest and a
different policy
good faith political commentator?
We should actually have good faith debates about it and come up with those solutions. And I think that the current discourse
that I am the one true leftist on Twitch and YouTube. Yes, I am the one true leftist.
Way of that.
Mm-hmm. That's really fast. I never thought about that but it makes perfect sense if people go into politics and they have this very like the other side is either composed of like all racists who want to enable some
was this section okay
against me. Right. Or like the other side is all made of like, communists who want to take over the country. Like it's going to put you in this headspace. You're like, oh my God, like I'm in this fight for my life. Like this is like the most important thing ever.
So, okay. So let's talk about, I want to comment on this specifically. The whole like, oh man, the world isn't as bad as like you know, as like I've painted it, or like, you know, as a commentator, not me, like if I'm Anna speaking, or like, you know, maybe like I've been too hyperbolic and stuff. I like, part of me feels like, and I can understand that, where it's like, oh man, there's like always this like bad news going on. There's all this, you know, we've mentioned before, like how many laws have been passed to attempt, if not successfully, strip away some rights from trans people, all the rest of the stuff, right? Like the world is kind of always moving, always, you know, all like time is not going to stop for any of us, right? And I guess like I would say to a lot of people, and we had a chatter in here earlier, who was being very very doomer and very like anti-American, and you know, they'll get past that. And I've had a few people come in and be like, oh man, like the world's fucked, like we have no da 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 da, you know, there's no way we're gonna ever get this, or we're never gonna progress past this, or whatever it might be, right? And when people say stuff like that, I always stress, and I want to stress to anybody who ever watches any of my content, that like there isn't, if you desire solutions, if you desire to see change, if you see something in the world that bugs the shit out of you, that bothers you to your core, then there is a path somewhere. I'm not aware of always where that is, but there is a path somewhere for you to find kind of an outlet, or a you know, some sort of organization to fix some of that, to address that issue. There's always something. We live in such a big and very accessible to each other world. Like I've had on people call in from Canada. I don't know anybody in Canada. We had a chatter earlier who's like in Germany. I don't know anybody from Germany. I know some people who have some German relatives. Like, we live in a very connected world, and don't forget that there are people. Like, it might seem like things like, don't fall into the nihilistic trap. There are people just like you who have the same problem with society that you have. That either they don't like the way criminal justice works. They don't like the way that we've treated indigenous people. They don't like our healthcare system. They don't like our voting system. They don't like this. They don't like that. Pursue that as best as you can. I know everybody has a job. I know that it's very hard to be involved like on an activist level, because I'm not very good at it. Even here in being part of like DSA, I'm really bad at being a DSA member, just because I have a job. I do this. I'm frequently pretty tired, and I don't go to meetings as much as I should. But like, I go to the ones I can, and I do try and make an effort, and that's kind of all you can do. But like, you gotta like, you gotta like give yourself the room to say, okay, what is a problem that I recognize with society? Is there a group? Is there an organization? Is there something I can be doing to address that? Because like, I heard this recently. I was listening to I was listening to an FD Signifier video while I was working the other night, and there was a brief segment about passive and active nihilism. And what I do want people to avoid is that kind of passive nihilism that like you feel depowered by the idea that like, you know, the world doesn't matter, you don't have a destiny, all the things that nihilism kind of prescribe for you, that there's not a point, there's not a big, like, you know, you're not going to be rewarded for all of your hard work, there is no meritocracy, a lot of these other things. But like, you can either look at that as bleak or freeing, because in a world where like there isn't this like, you have a purpose, that you are born with some kind of purpose, I want you to think about embracing. I want everyone to think about embracing the idea that it's not that you don't have a purpose, it's that you now get to choose that purpose. You can at one point, at any point in your life, decide, this is important to me, I'm doing this now. And maybe 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, 15 years down the road, 20 years, maybe you have kids, you can tell them, you know, maybe you have a normal job. Maybe you're just a normal person. But hey, when I was your age, when I was a little bit younger, I took a stand on this thing and we got this thing changed, and we changed society in this way, in a positive manner for the good. All those times. And it was something small. It was a brief window of my life, but I did something. And some people, they keep doing that. Some people, they can only really do that maybe once or so in their life, because it takes a long time for this stuff. But like being active and seeing those, like having those nihilistic moments, and I think like coming to it's better to come to that understanding. And I can't say I know how you come to that understanding. I can say that you will be happier for it, and I can say that like it will be hard, but it'll be fulfilling. That like it'll be difficult, but it'll be really fulfilling. I promise you, to like accomplish something, to really get there on something you care about. But everyone cares about something. Anyway. But yeah, that's my spiel. But like I say all of that to say, it feels like there is I think a nihilism that's festered a little bit in Anna Kasparian. And there's a quote later. I'll bring it up when it comes up, because I want to zero in on that. But I do feel like there is a impatient and maybe like passive nihilism that has taken root a little bit in Anna's political tool.
And then you're like, well, once you start to see like, well, yeah, there's small pockets of that exist, but the average person is not that. You're like, oh my God, this weight has been lifted from my shoulder. I don't feel like the world is about to end.
Yeah, totally.
I want to say two things. First of all, and I don't know your take on Jordan Peterson, but it is like the first rule is tell the truth. And I feel like coming to a place in
Jordan
your life
Peterson.
where you're like, I feel like I'm honestly telling the truth now. I can see where that would make me feel completely better. I'm one of these people who just hates thinking I'm being dishonest, or if I'm in a position where I'm forced to be dishonest for a job or something like that. I just, it's
God, name me a job that you're not
and I do think it is kind of
forced to be dishonest about.
Politically expedient for a lot of people to categorize far right, racist, Nazi pieces of shit who, none of us are in favor of, for
Jordan the Truth, right?
Moderate Republicans who just want.
Don't they have on Sargon of Akkad, and isn't he
some sort of policy?
I've heard enough Sargon of Akkad. I don't know if I'd call him a centrist.
You've got the conservatives on the right who are kind of playing defense for society, and you have liberals and progressives on the right who are or on the left who are kind of playing offense for society. They're the ones that are pitching all of these crazy policies for making society better. And conservatives are kind of saying, well, we're kind of good where we are now. Should we take the risk of doing this?
Okay, by the way, I do so while I despise his sports analogy, I do think it is useful to kind of, I do think that's a fair analogy. Again, I despise it because it's a sports analogy. But I also think this is a childish way to think about politics, and like, especially when we're talking about parties, what we're talking about is electoralism and the system of like voting, because that's overall the deciding factor as to what is moving forward on a political level. But anyway,
and you really need, what sports team doesn't have a good offense?
We're not a sports team. There is the problem is on a sports team you're playing against another team. We're not doing that as a country. We're not playing anybody else.
Realize
like
there are people on the right.
You don't play. You play yourself. You improve yourself. It's not. I wouldn't even say it's like. It's not like playing sports against another team. It's like working out. That's what politics is more analogous to. Is more like working out.
Look, I disagree with many of the policy ideas they have or the perspectives they espouse, but there are good,
precisely, trying ain't dying is goddamn
thoughtful conservative Republicans out there. Like, I think Glenn Lowry is a good example. Again, I might not agree with everything he has to say, but he's a thoughtful person, and he is not in any way justifying,
I don't know who that person is.
white supremacy or some of the like hyperbolic things that he might get accused of by those on the left. And again, it's really about
I think it's also we all understand. I think we all understand the value and like the value that we get out of like being excited about stuff. Like if you play video games, right? If you play video games, I've been playing a lot of PUBG lately. I don't know why. I just kind of been on the PUBG train. But like, it's like fulfilling to like get yourself a chicken dinner. It's fulfilling. It's fun. I like keep at it because like at this point I'm a bit addicted to playing it. But like I've put a lot of time into it. I've like played a lot. I've like really worked on like getting better at it. And like because of that, I get value and I get like some fulfillment out of doing well when I play well, even if I don't win all the time necessarily. And that's, I think, more how you want to look at politics to a degree. Is that like, obviously when you get those like, there are going to be those times when like the slow nature of politics will wear on you. And that's when like you're owed yourself to take a break. Like politics aren't easy to always be involved in. It's hard to not get those like slumps and fall into, I think kind of a negative view that it all takes too long and that everything else like, but you kind of got to take a break, take maybe a week off and come back. And, if you're still feeling it, get back on the horse. I mean, I think it's a lot less like sports and more like working out, honestly.
In good faith, the other side. And
train yourself, train your body and your mind.
I guess debate the issues as opposed to like what I see happening right now is I want the left to engage in the argument as opposed
Here we go. All right.
What I see happening, which is them engaging in like ad hominem in a lot of cases.
Who cares?
Character assassination.
I'll be honest, I don't care that much about ad homs.
Statements about the individual.
Considering the ad homs are, hey, the thing you're saying is racist, I think you're a racist. Or like to me, the ad homs are really not a problem on the left the same way they are on the right. And I don't know where she's getting this like, oh, the left just focuses on ad homs. Like, what are you talking about? First of all, me calling somebody a racist if they say something racist on Twitter is not me ad homing them. It's me analyzing their behavior and marking it with a term that we have for that behavior. Like if you have a problem with that, tough titties, that have a cry all you want, but like you're not going to change my analysis of your behavior, because the thing that she's upset about is being called a transphobe. And while I don't necessarily think Anna is a transphobe, certainly the arguments that she's been validating and I think promoting are rather transphobic. And I think like if she's mad about the analysis of people calling her a transphobe, then she should go on her show that she hosts, one of the largest leftist shows, and make a case for herself. I like if you want to talk about the arguments, Anna, then like bring the arguments. But just going like, oh, people are being mean, that's okay, whatever. People are mean. Like, I don't know what to tell you, man. The world is full of people who are kind of mean and will jump the shark on stuff like that. But like if you're upset about the analysis, then bring an argument to the analysis.
Character based on their preconceived notions and based on what they heard other streamers say about the individual. It's like, okay, just take a step back for a second. You need to address the point that this person is making. And if you're not addressing the point that this person is making, and instead you're turning around and throwing all sorts of like accusations at them to make them seem like they're immoral or they're bad people, then that tells me that you don't really have an answer to what they're saying, And I see that happening more when it comes to culture war related issues as opposed to economic issues. And that's the other thing. I mean, I think that the left...
Well, I think also because like the economics are pretty like inarguable, or at the very least I do think that like she's going to go into now about how the left is like abandoned economics, to which like the question kind of becomes, what economic issue have we been talking about lately? No, seriously, because that's also my thing, is economics right now just really aren't what people are talking about. no leftist, none of the people she's, you know, sub talking about right now, subtweeting in this interview, like nobody she's talking to doesn't support a $15 minimum wage, doesn't support universal health care, doesn't support college for all, doesn't support any other leftist cause. You know, we're all in agreement on all of these economic issues. There's almost no variance on the left in terms of economics until you get to like anarchists probably. And like, you know, there's obviously like disagreements between, you know, social democrats and socialists and communists. And like, there's those disagreements, but like when we talk about the economics aren't really the thing that like this, aren't really the thing that like people are talking about right now. It's not like we're not getting like you can do a story every single week about how the US needs a $15 minimum wage. Guess what? It ain't happening. The you know, the House is now Republican. The Senate is barely Democrat, and Biden wouldn't be interested in a $15 minimum wage either, really, since they didn't push for it when they secured both houses. So, you know, kind of the moment's passed for that one. I don't know what other economic issues she's talking about or what she's referencing, but certainly none of them are the ones that are interesting if you want to like, or at the very least are in vogue right now. And if you want to talk about like healthcare, then the story that you would frame healthcare around is trans rights, since that is the topic for which healthcare is being most discussed is within trans rights. So I don't know. It's just like it's not that many people are talking about economics right now, and not only that, but the right broadly hasn't been talking about economics either. Like honestly, not so long ago, maybe a couple years ago, every once in a while, I would see debates on here on Twitch, between like Sam Cedar and some libertarian, whether it was what was that one guy's name? I don't remember his name, but he's, you know, some dude, you know, you'd see like economics professors get like a YouTuber or a Twitch channel, and they'd go on these debates with like other people. Like there used to be some of that over economics, but the right doesn't talk about economics anymore. It's not something they engage in, and we can't, our answer for, you know, at the end of the day, what the right is seizing on is like, you know, people saying, oh, you know, it's getting harder to buy things, and I'm not getting paid as much, and all the rest of this stuff, right? And Republicans' answer to that is kind of always the same answer it's going to be, which is, oh, well, it's because of the degradation of society, because we've allowed gay marriage to take hold, and trans and men are now becoming women, and blah 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 blah. And like they've done a good job of making those things the stuff that their audiences, their voters, are pretty darn concerned about, or at the very least what they respond very actively for. Trump kind of explains this. Were Republicans interested in tax cuts? At that, we all saw that video, right, of Trump like mentioning how, oh yeah, I mentioned tax cuts and like 2 people clap. I mentioned trans rights, and I get all these people. You didn't even know what trans people were a year ago. Nothing, and that is the motivating that is the motivating thing, the motivating factor that's getting them to the polls, pushing them to the ballot box. Like that's the thing that's interesting to them. I know polling shows that Republican voters generally economically are not as like trickle down, they're not as wedded to trickle down economics and to kind of the rot at the core of neoliberal economics as they used to be. But being in favor of something and having that thing be a motivating factor is not the same thing. Those aren't always the same thing. Unfortunately, we see many times people vote against their economic well-being for social issues that just kind of hold more emotional weight to them. It's unfortunate, and not to say that, but this is why I say we should be doing both. A focus on one now does not mean that we shouldn't focus on the other later. It's just this is the battlefield now, and Anna doesn't like this battlefield because she's much more of an economics person, which that's fine. But then I don't know what to tell you. Like, wait for the economics wave then.
Has completely, and they'll deny this, but I mean, just go to Twitter right now. They've like abandoned.
Also, log off,
policies,
Anna. Log off
and
Twitter,
instead
please, for the love of
on
God.
Incredibly divisive.
Twitter's not real life. I'm sorry.
Identity-related issues, right?
Yeah.
And and like their take is always, oh well, the other side wants us just they're racist. That's why. They're transphobic. That's why. And
Well,
it's
yeah,
like, no, you got to do more.
yeah,
than that.
they're
So if you're gonna
transphobic.
You know, if you're going to refute what they're saying, then actually address the points they're making. And
Also,
if you're
I'm
not
not
gonna
sure
do
what she
that,
means
you're
by
gonna come
they.
out looking incredibly weak
Because
and
like
childish.
the problem is
probably
if
don't
you
know this, but we
address,
talk about
you don't
MTV.
treat like content creators the same that you treat like regular people. Regular people aren't paid to have these opinions. These two, on the other hand, are paid to represent their position on the political spectrum.
And UBI on the stream quite often. And it drives people crazy. I mean, how do you make affordable housing sexy? it's like, it's not
No, I know.
necessarily a thing.
Well, I mean, it's surprising because I did a story just last Wednesday on Airbnb crashing. And,
I watched
you know,
that vid. Yeah.
Yeah, and that video, I'm kind of shocked. It got like 200,000 views. It was not something I expected. I thought like, oh, it's a dense, like statistics-driven,
Yeah, and
video,
do you think?
but it did well. And I
Do you think
there is a
the
hunger
right
for
was
those
watching
types
that
of
video?
videos and for that type
Like,
of
yeah,
content.
leftists fucking
It's not
love
gonna
that type of
go
bullshit, but
super
it's not.
viral, like some hyperbolic.
It's
you
not
know,
like the thing that people vote
video
on.
about, like, a police
Sadly,
shooting
like that sort of
or
information
about
is kind of
alleged
dense.
Karen, right? But I don't really care.
Normies
I just
don't have time
look,
for
I
that
don't
kind
wanna
of
be part the problem. I don't want
depth,
to
unfortunately, I think.
add to this toxic discourse that does nothing to improve anyone's life. And I feel like I've been engaging in that, and I feel embarrassed about it. And that's really where I'm coming from. I want to get people healthcare. I want to get people housing. Those are the issues that matter. Okay.
Well,
And keep in mind, okay, so let's talk about this now. And I said, I'm actually, wait, is she going to say the thing that I mentioned?
You kind of have to work with Republicans, and that's where I think this stereotype of
life. And I feel like I don't really care. Police shooting or about an alleged Karen, right? But I don't really care. Like some hyperbolic, you know.
All right, this is gonna be the main thing. My thesis is gonna be based on this.
Videos and for that type of content. It's not gonna go super viral like some hyperbolic, you know, video about like a police shooting or about an
Police shooting, something
Karen,
that's
right?
quite bad.
But
And
I don't really
yeah, you're right. Let's equate a video that goes viral on TikTok about some Karen and a police shooting, which is indicative and shines a spotlight on our faulty criminal justice system, right? Okay. I don't think those two things are equal. I think being boisterous about a shooting by police is probably a net good. Whereas the other one is kind of a net neutral to net bad, depending on the consequences. But like, I don't really think those are equal there in their, because she mentions hyperbolic, but like, what's the hyperbolic part about covering a shooting by police? What's the hyperbole here? Is the hyperbole that our system is systemically racist? I don't know. Like, now I'm kind of wondering how skeptical Anna is of that, which, okay, a bit weird, but continue.
Like, I just, look, I don't want to be part
Doesn't
of the problem.
care. Gotcha.
I don't want to add to this toxic discourse that does nothing to improve anyone's life.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I've been engaging in that, and I feel embarrassed about it. And that's really where I'm coming from. I want to get people healthcare. I want to get people housing. Those are the issues that matter. Okay.
Well,
And keep in mind, both housing and healthcare are incredibly important issues. But like, the way that you frame them and how you talk about them is also kind of important. If you want to talk about healthcare right now, if you really want to talk about healthcare, then you probably want to center it around trans healthcare, mainly because that's the only field in which we're seeing, along with I suppose reproductive healthcare. Those are like the two fields. And keep in mind, reproductive health care is also a culture war element, but like Anna wouldn't say that that's not important. Now that I think about it, I actually find that to be a bit hypocritical, because Anna has consistently complained about her rights as a woman being taken away in terms of abortion, which I think is horrific. But like, Anna's absolutely been hyperbolic about that, and I actually think that that's been warranted. Or maybe not hyperbolic, but she's been very like boisterous about it. She's been very loud about it, and I think that's perfectly warranted. But like, to say that like, oh, that's a culture war thing, that's not that's not really important, that's not really like meaningful. Like, no, some of not all, but some of these culture wars have real world effects. Some of them end up being economic. Some of them end up brushing up against one's rights to healthcare. But like, certainly, these are not just like frivolous, frivolous talking points, especially around trans healthcare. How many bills have we seen where lawmakers are challenging, putting challenges up between doctors and their patients, but only trans patients. You know what I'm saying? Like if you want to talk about healthcare, there's one group that's being targeted this year more than any other, and it's trans people and their healthcare. So why wouldn't, like, if you're still talking about healthcare, why not through that lens? Why is that an unacceptable lens? And it's this weird, like, no, we should only talk about it in like a universal healthcare, single payer system, the politics of that, the polling, the this, the that. And it's like, yeah, the polling already shows that most, like, we won the polling. We won all of these things. These are won battles. The next battle is moving it through the the body, like the not body politic, through like the culture, and pulling more and more people to the side of accessible healthcare for all. And you do that by coalition building with trans activists, with trans Americans, because each one of those all know a normal person who, just friends with them, maybe just a family member, who will say, yeah, they should have healthcare the same way I should have healthcare. We should all have healthcare.
In order to do that, you kind of have to work with Republicans, and that's where I think this stereotype of
and what's the work with
as evil racists is ultimately not helpful in the end. If you want health care, you can't work with the evil racists to get health care done. You just can't do it.
Well, I mean, it's hilarious because, okay, let's put healthcare aside for...
Well, wait. Okay, so here's the problem. The problem is not that Republicans are too racist to pass universal healthcare. The problem is that they're too corrupt. And they're also ideologically opposed to the idea that government should be involved in healthcare at all. Like, the Republican Party has made it a consistent effort to cut Medicare and Medicaid. That is a thing, and Social Security. That is a thing that they have consistently done every single time they can. Like, at the end of the day, that's been a goal of theirs for quite a long time. So how am I, a leftist who believes in socialized medicine, which is to say medicine for all, how am I supposed to work with the conservative who is ideologically opposed to the idea of government being involved in healthcare? How am I supposed to work with them? What's the common ground here? There isn't any. Keep in mind that even if they agreed upon that, they would still want carve-outs to make sure that abortion was not a healthcare service that was afforded to people. Same with trans healthcare, gender-affirming care, any of that stuff. So, like, why would I work with these people? They're ideologically opposed to my end goal. So, what do we have to work on here? I don't know why this is. I don't know why this is like confusing for anybody on this panel. It's pretty obvious. The Republican Party writ large, conservatives generally, aren't in favor of socialized medicine. Boom, there it is. There's no getting past that.
For a second, because here's the other thing. The far left will push
Hey, that's me.
ideas that are not popular with the general public, right?
Yes.
So
Cool.
I think that protecting, marginalized communities, protecting the transgender community is important. However, when you move out of or move far away from making sure that they are not denied housing, making sure that they're not denied healthcare, when you move into like these more fringe areas of like, I mean, there was a story out of the UK this week.
So being unspecific. So let's be really, really clear here. Anna has no fucking idea what she's talking about, which is unfortunate for me to say, because you can kind of see in a lot of that response her grasping for an example of the left being in favor of some cultural, some cultural position that's unpopular, that, maybe aligns themselves with a marginalized community, right? To which, like, she had to sit there. We all saw that. She had to sit there and kind of think about it a bit. What is an example of the left taking up an unpopular position, one that is, doesn't do anything for anybody, doesn't benefit anybody negatively or positively? What is something that's that's meaningless and all it does is serve to make the left look silly? And what does she run to? She runs to the UK story. She runs to the bonus hole story, a story that is a non-story. It's literally nothing. It's literally nothing. One group in the UK had a conversation, and Brown and Joy Gay went over this too and made it sound as dumb as it is, had a conversation about possible inclusive language for trans men. And Anna points to that as an unpopular position that the left takes up at the expense of fighting for housing and criminal justice reform. Now, you tell me, has the left ever shut the fuck up about housing or criminal justice reform? Has that, I don't know, been like kind of the thing that we always end up talking about to a degree? Because, like, to me, what am I looking for? This tab. Because to me, it's pretty clear that that Anna spends, I don't know, maybe like too much time on Twitter. I don't know. But like, I'm in DSA in Denver, and we consistently are having conversations, talking to legislators, all of these things around housing justice. There's an entire committee dedicated to housing justice. Like, this isn't something that if you ask a leftist, they don't have opinions on. It isn't something where, funnily enough, actually, now that I think about it, if you had asked me about housing for marginalized communities, if you'd had asked me about that before I watched this, certainly, and then you asked me about the bonus hole story, I would tell you I don't even know the bonus hole story and probably spiel off something about housing justice. I don't know what the specifics would be, but it'd say something, right? But like, Anna's introduced this non-story as an example of what? Something that the left was never talking about? Show me the leftists who were banging on about bonus holes constantly on the internet or even in any prominent space. I'll wait. But she found one article on Twitter from probably Ollie London or some other right-wing hack, and now she thinks that it's like indicative of all the left's behavior. Log off of Twitter, my dude.
This week blows my mind. There was an LGBTQ group in the UK who suggested that instead of referring to vaginas as vaginas because it might be offensive to transgender men, one of the potential replacements or substitutes could be bonus hole.
Cool.
Bonus hole?
Yeah, bonus hole.
And it's sad because she thinks it's a gotcha.
People don't like this stuff, okay? They might not be on Twitter talking about it.
They might not be on Twitter talking about it because nobody knows what fucking story you're talking about. Nobody on the left was talking about this, Anna. You read it from some right-wing hack on Twitter and decided to use it as a bludgeon against leftists. That's what's happening here. You're hyper-focusing on this story that maybe reached a couple thousand eyes and blew it up to make a point that the left, so much that it is a hive mind or some nonsense, doesn't focus on the things that you want to talk about. That's what this all is. Anna wants to talk about housing. Anna wants to talk about what's the word? What was it? Talk about economics. So she'll find and hyper focus on some dumb fuck UK story that nobody was talking about to make her really weak point that the left doesn't talk about housing justice, doesn't talk about criminal justice anymore, and only wants to talk about bonus holes.
How much they dislike this stuff, but on average, every normie woman I've talked to is like,
Has never heard this story.
Stand this stuff, right? So what Jake
and keep in mind,
talked about,
there's a reason why she says this stuff, because she's not talking about the bonus hole story. She's making a broad characterization of inclusive language that people probably have either, some of them have heard like one or two terms, and that's like it. Any normie never heard the bonus hole story. Any normie has not heard the cis is a slur discourse. Any normie doesn't know about any of this stuff. I'm also starting to think that Anna definitely thinks this is a slur, although I won't be surprised by that.
About it, I think we talked about it in the context of trans athletes or whatever, and it was, hey, we got to be a little more strategic, because if you do this, if you start pushing the mainstream Democratic Party to run their campaigns on these like fringe issues, they might not get reelected, or they might not get elected at all if they're running against a Republican in a district. And the response, and it's the same response we got when we made the same point about the stupid prison abolition movement, is we don't care. We don't care. This is the right thing to do. We don't care. And it's like, well,
and if I remember correctly, Olay, if
but
I
then
remember
you complain
correctly,
about
went
what
on
Republicans are
to
doing in various red states. So do you want more
onto what's it
Republicans
called?
to get elected, and do you want more of these?
Yeah, because didn't Olay from Leftist Mafia go on the Young Turks to talk to them about that? And she's like a lawyer, I think, right, or something, public defender maybe.
Look, I think that some of these laws that have been passed in various red states, for instance, banning gender affirming care for adults, between the ages of 18 to 25, I think that's wrong. I think adults should be able to make a decision about their own bodies. I do think that there is a worthwhile debate when it comes to, hormone blockers and cross-sex hormones for children, and we should have that debate in good faith. But I don't.
Well, here's the problem, Anna. The left has consistently had the debate on puberty blockers, on cross-sex hormones. We have all had that debate long ago in good faith. The reason why I'm consistently skeptical of the right wing when they come to me, or when anybody comes to me in chat and talks about puberty blockers, it's fine to do so, but you're going to get kind of the same response from me, is that there is no evidence to show that there is significant harm to people who go on puberty blockers. There just isn't. There's no provable harm to it. Or at the very least, let me be really, really specific with my wording. There is no significant, consistent harm. Which is to say, like, yes, is that is bone density, and I know there's like a few other minor side effects. Are those things side effects? Yes. Are they? Do we find that happens to many people? No. So, if it's going to be a small group of people suffer from these side effects, then as long as people are informed, I think they should be able to go forward with their healthcare plan the same way everybody else does when it comes to their healthcare. And this is where we really run into a problem with Anna's rhetoric here, is because what she is doing is validating and confirming for Republicans, for conservatives online, and let's be clear, this is only going to be online. Because every time somebody comes into my chat, or maybe Hasanabi's chat, or any other leftist streamers, and if we're talking, or if the topic of trans healthcare comes up, they are inevitably going to say something along the lines of, even Anna Kasparian, progressive, a host of the Young Turks, says that puberty blockers aren't reversible. Because that's what she's done now. She's made herself into a tool for the right wing. And whether she likes it or not, that is what she is. She is now a mouthpiece. She said earlier she doesn't want to be a mouthpiece. Well, sorry to say, you're going to be the mouthpiece, the representative for every single time somebody wants to just ask questions about puberty blockers. Every time now. Even though there's no evidence, even though there's literally nothing to base any of the skepticism on, we're still going to see a lot of skepticism around it. And part of that is because Anna has gone and validated some of that, creating a fake authority to rubber stamp these people's skepticism. And we all know what internet skepticism looks like. We all understand what the nature of skepticism is, especially on the internet with these kinds of topics. Instead of saying, something like, puberty blockers are, will harm children. Instead, you can say, I just have questions about the effects of puberty blockers. I have no evidence. I have no studies. I have nothing. I just have it just doesn't, don't you think that somebody, and then, it's a hypothetical, and then my answer will always be, well, I'm not a doctor. So I don't know what any individual person's reaction to puberty blockers is, but I know what the science tells us, and I know what the statistics tell us. And when we're making laws that affect broad swaths of people's healthcare, we should be basing those on statistics and not on individual stories. But now, Anna didn't want to be a mouthpiece, but you're going to be, now you are. Good job. Played yourself on that one.
The pendulum to swing far to the right, I would venture to say the left feels the same way, except I'm not so sure. Because to them, going on Twitter and patting themselves on the back for being the most pure is more important to them than strategy. It's more important to them than actually accomplishing the policies that they claim to want to accomplish. Every time I make that point, they'll be like, oh, but you don't even know. There are people on the ground, activists on the ground, working hard to make this happen. And it's like, I'm not blind. I see what's happening in the country right now. So you can tell me about, your...
So wait, Anna, so are there not activists doing this work? So there aren't activists then, right? There aren't people working to create real change around social issues. That's not a thing that's happening right now. This is fucking cope.
Imaginary on the ground activists making real change happen as we speak, but I'm not buying it. So
does Anna have like no awareness of like local elections? I know the Young Turks doesn't really cover local elections, but as a frequent viewer of the Majority Report, there's actually been some solid victories throughout the country of leftists and socialists winning offices in local state houses, which I know isn't as sexy and isn't as fast as winning a presidential election would be, but like movements from the left tend to be bottom up and not top down. That's just kind of historically how leftist movements have always functioned.
Offended as they want, they can get as upset as they want. I don't really care. I'm not a mouthpiece for anyone, any political
except
party,
the right
any
wing
political group. My obligation
except transphobes
is
now.
to share the facts of the story with my audience to the best of my ability, and then do good faith analysis on those stories. And if they don't like my analysis, they can make whatever decision they want about whether they support or watch the show. And that's why I say I might be engaging in a little bit of self-sabotage, because
oh yeah, and this is lying.
I don't know what the outcome of all of this is going to be. There is no
let's be clear. Let's be clear. The outcome for her can always be go to Daily Wire and get paid millions. That is always the outcome for Anna. That she always has that option available to her. They will take her in with open fucking arms. And they will love going former TYT host, former progressive, Anna Kasparian joins the Daily Wire. They'll do it. So don't give me this bullshit about like career suicide. Like, no, please spare me. There's a lot of money heading in the direction, heading downstream where you're heading.
Big play here. I'm not leaving TYT. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. And I don't.
Holy shit. What the fuck just happened? Oh, because I hit the thing. Okay.
It as they want. They can get as upset as they want. I don't really care. I'm not a mouthpiece for anyone, any political party, any political group. My obligation is to share the facts of the story with my audience to the best of my ability, and then do good faith analysis on those stories. And if they don't like my analysis, they can make whatever decision they want about whether they support or watch the show. And that's why I say I might be engaging in a little bit of self-sabotage, because I don't know what the outcome of all of this is going to be. You know, there is no big play here. I'm not leaving TYT. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. And I don't know what the outcome will eventually be, to be honest.
Like I said, she's got one of the many outcomes is she can trade it all in to be rich. Okay, let me bring up the tweet that got deleted from her, apparently from, what was this, yesterday? This is the last thing we're going to do in terms of Anna Kasparian. The civil rights movement, and let's be clear, this has also been a big rallying cry, I think, for whatever her new politics are, which is that the left is engaging in unpopular stances that, you know, cost us in some form or fashion electorally. And instead, if we only focus on economics, if we stop focusing on social issues or issues around social justice, that we would be able to win all of the races we want to win. Is that true? I don't think it's demonstrable. I definitely don't think that. Mainly because I just don't see it. I don't see Republicans coming over to Democrats' side because they support a $15 minimum wage. They don't now. What makes you think they will do it later if we hold that position? They will never support, and by they, I don't mean individuals, I mean the Republican Party, will never support socialized medicine. It won't happen. It won't ever happen. Because their party and the way that their base has been educated politically is one of opposition to any socialized program. Now, let's get to the tweet. The civil rights movement did not use the same strategies as the trans movement. They didn't barricade speakers they disagreed with in a classroom for 3 hours. What she's referencing, I believe, was that Riley Gaines? Might have been Riley Gaines. I don't 100% remember, but I think it was Riley Gaines. It was like at some college, and also those weren't trans activists, or wasn't the trans movement. A lot of those were college kids, but okay. You know, I don't know the individual politics of everybody. I know they were left-leaning, certainly. They persuaded through nonviolence and showing America their humanity. Well, you know, it's funny one would say that. So let's go take a look at what I find to be a pretty solid rebuttal to this. Martin Luther King Jr. was less popular than Donald Trump when he was killed. I want that to sink in for everybody. Donald Trump, an alive orange moron, is more popular than MLK was on the day he died. Now, I want you to think about how controversial MLK was, how give me a moment while I think. How uncontroversial, and contrast that with how uncontroversial he is today, right? And there's a reason for that. The reason is mainly because we now have an understanding of MLK's movement, of the goal of MLK's movement. We now understand his legacy and his place in American history. And to pretend that the civil rights movement, a movement, by the way, not just of nonviolence, there seems to be a lot of whitewashing going on in terms of the existence and prominence of something called the Black Panther Party in America during the time. Keep in mind that we look at Martin Luther King now as a hero, as a man, who stood for the better nature of the American populace, as the the avatar of social change in America, kind of like the guy you think of when you think about large social movements in the United States. This this preference towards peaceful action, all of this stuff. And what gets obscured a lot of the times is MLK's radicalism, because quite frankly, it's not something that we get taught. We get taught a lot of the non-violent stuff. We get taught, you read the I Have a Dream speech and stuff like that. And, you hear quotes of him saying, for a man to be judged not by the color of his skin, but of the goodness of his character, whatever the fuck the quote is. I can never remember that one. But in no way is that the entire story of the civil rights movement. In no way is that the entire story of MLK. MLK was incredibly unpopular in his lifetime. And the idea that we as a political bloc should be abandoning demographics, abandoning other coalitions, abandoning entire swaths of political and ideological ground for the sake of public opinion polling. I quote polling a lot. I think the opinion of Americans is important. But certainly, it is not the end-all, be-all, and certainly it is not the most important thing one needs to ask themselves when they're considering to support or oppose any action, any policy. Because those aren't the things. For Anna to make this argument is utterly stupid. Because at the end of the day, socialized medicine, if you are ideologically committed to getting everyone health care, then you shouldn't care too much about how Americans feel about socialized medicine. You shouldn't. You understand the healthcare system that we live under and want to improve it with with a program of socialization. And you should understand that, look, I have an ideological stance on this. I understand that there are people who disagree with me, people who don't understand what I'm saying or have nervous feelings about it. But it is my job as a political actor, it is my job as an advocate to try and change your mind on that, to try and challenge you to imagine a different world, imagine a different political status quo. That is what we do as commentators. We broaden the imagination of people. And simply put, if people were already in favor of all the things that I wanted to see change in this country, I wouldn't really need to be here. None of us would need to change anybody's mind. Every single day, the right wing goes out there and tries to change a few people's minds in whatever dishonest way they can to get more people to be skeptical about the existence of trans people. And almost every single stream, every single time I'm on this platform, I engage in some kind of rhetoric that challenges you to think about where your biases lie in terms of trans identity. Have you ever thought about gender? Have you ever thought about sexual identity? Have you ever thought about any of these things? Like maybe, how many people come in and go, gender and sex are the same things? Like, well, let's unpack that a little bit. And that's what we do as, that's what I do here. I try to engage with people, try to get them to kind of come to my political positions, even though maybe they're unpopular, but unpopularity has never been an argument against correct moral political stances. Now has it? Medicare for all, it polls well, but would we say that because it doesn't poll overwhelmingly well, because not all Americans are in favor of it, that we shouldn't have it, that we shouldn't pursue it? What is Anna arguing here? That only pursue popular things? Well, unfortunately, that path doesn't really lead to a lot of, certainly not radical, but also not real change. Challenging your society to live up to ideals, to enfranchise those who are marginalized, to be a better place for a larger swath of people, that's not always going to be popular. But sometimes it's the right thing to do. Oftentimes, I think when it's coming from the left at least, and you can call me biased all you want, I think we're right. And that's kind of more important to me than whether Americans know that I'm right. I know trans people are valid and should have all the rights that everybody else does. And if Americans disagree with me, then I guess I have to work to change their minds. But I'm not going to do that by abandoning that entire conversation, now am I? And this is what I spoke about earlier with nihilism. It feels like there is a passive nihilism that has taken hold in a bit of Anna's politics, and that's unfortunate. As somebody who, is at the top of a very large and very prominent, platform, it's disappointing to see. It's disappointing to see somebody who has access to power to a degree, who has influence, and feels that they're incapable of making less of an impact than, somebody like me. It's disappointing, and maybe this is just like a, momentary thing. I don't know. Originally I wasn't sure how long we'd spend on this. We ended up spending the entire Legally Distinct Fun half. But that's okay. That's okay. We talked about what we talked about. But either way, I don't. I'm left dumbstruck by a lot of these takes from Anna, quite frankly. But either way, good gravy. Either way, do I have any news at the moment? Not really. Other than next week, Monday, same time, the usual 7 o'clock Mountain Time. We'll be doing our thing. God, very yawny. I'm trying to think. Do I have any notes for tonight? I don't think I do. Either way, I know it was I know Monday was just a flub of a show. Again, you'll forgive me. It's just full-time job and doing this. I just get tired sometimes. Yeah. Either way, we'll be back Monday. If you've enjoyed if you'd enjoyed any of what you saw, if you learned anything, if you got anything out of it, maybe you just like lurking in chat, you should definitely hit that follow button if you're on Twitch, and definitely hit that subscribe button if you're on YouTube. It helps me out. It helps out the channel. Helps keep things rolling along here as we head towards 100 followers. We're already at, what are we at? 72 now, I think. So not too, we got about, what is that? 28? No, 30. No, 20. 28. Yeah, 28. Yeah. Holy shit. Yeah. Yeah. Only about 28 more. And we're up to 100, which is cool. I think over on the YouTube channel, we're at 70 last I checked. So that's also really good. If you are, if you ever, if you're watching this and you're like, I want to show up and talk to this person, you can always email me if you want to debate a topic or whatever. I'm very open to any kind of conversations. I'm not, I don't dodge debates and I don't dodge, interactions or anything like that. But either way, that's going to be it for me this week. Yeah, you all stay well, eat your vitamins and veggies and stuff like that, and I'll see you Monday. Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, see you all later. Bye-bye.